Okay. I actually need to check it. Okay, it is working. YouTube changed their UI and it's really bad. It's it's, it's really not very good, unfortunately. It boy. So basically what they do is they put the stream preview up at top now, and then they put like the stream itself really awkwardly, like the stream preview is taking up like 70% of my screen right now, and I don't. It, is that good? Is that beneficial? I don't think so. And I don't know. I basically can't do anything. Okay, so hello everybody. Yeah, I got the hankering to talk to everybody. I've been basically doing nothing except playing EU5 for like a while now. I can't show you guys any gameplay or anything like that. I'm up to 250 hours right now. So suffice it to say, it's been a while of me playing that. And I just wrapped up a Hesh game. I might do like an after action thingy. I don't really know how to do that on the kind of videos I do. I don't really know how to do that, but I've seen other people do it, and I'm like, maybe I could do that, but I don't really know how I would do that. So at the very least, I figured I'd stream, say hello. We're at Windows 11, so unfortunately I need to have this stupid bar now at the bottom, which is really irritating. Really dumb. At any rate, you guys now have to ask questions and at least get talking about things. So far as EU5, yeah, it's been pretty fun. I think everybody likes it. Let me put on some music or something. Is the EU5 music here? Yeah, it is. Wait, what's the song? Hold on. No, not Pain is Salvation. No, not Rise of an Empire. Not in here. Okay, there's one song here. This one. Hello, Rock Paladin. Yes, they've announced when the content embargo is up. Unfortunately for me, I'm not allowed to say when the embargo is up until tomorrow. I'm playing this very by the book, by the way. I'm not showing any gameplay. I'm not showing any of that. By the book, I am not allowed to announce when the embargo is up until tomorrow. If someone else does it, that's fine. I can't. So, even though it's widely publicized information, I don't want to break a single rule at all, and I do not want to get on Paradox's bad side at all, and therefore, despite the absurdity of it, I will not be, yeah. Okay, ask me questions, ask me anything. So I played Hess, and I loaded up a time map here. Hesh. I played for a while. The capital, so I'm in 1337 here. Not in a finger waving, I'd just be afraid to get on their bad side and just be known as the dude who breaks rules. I got this in 1560, something like that. I looked at the Hansa, but they're not allowed to own land, and I didn't really understand their whole purpose. They just seem to be a funny LARPy group. They don't really do anything when you fight them because they're not on the map. They're just there. I mean, it's nice that they're implemented, and they're certainly very strong. I got all of Central Germany. No, I'm saying I got about this. That seems about right. Man, this mouse, I'm not sold on this mouse. I got about this. I can't tell if it's me or the mouse. I feel like its back is just really... Or maybe it's my... I got a new mouse. I'm just... I'm not sure. It feels weird to me. I'm not sure. I think it's because the back is a little bit too weighted. And it causes it... Draw tool? I mean, I got this. I mean, you guys know me, right? I heard the soundtrack change when playing different regions. Yeah, not that much, but yeah, a couple songs definitely. I might be paranoid, and I might actually be paranoid in this one, but I swear to God, Italy plays different music. Not that much, but I swear to God it does. Or maybe I'm going crazy. This game like factions, more like lords. Well, you're playing as a country. You're not playing... You have a ruling dynasty, you have a character, and he has stats. And those stats do affect you. But it's not that important. You can pay more to like educate your heir. But there's not that much you can do to influence. It's kind of like hands-off, like EU4, where it's like, look, you get a good king, you get a good king. You get a bad king, tough shit. Unlike EU4, kings are never spawned from thin air or anything like that. Yeah. So, to give you an idea, by the way, what your king does, 0 to 100 admin is 0 to 10% build cost reduction, 0 to 100 mil is 10% morale to your army. Diplomacy, I don't even remember what diplomacy does. So it's not like a huge deal, but definitely going from like a 30-30-30, which is about average, going from that to like a 90-90-90 is like a huge boon. But the odds of that happening is not very great. God Kings kind of have to roll good stats, like when any character is born, they're 0-0-0. Let me like turn this way down because I can't even hear myself think right now. Okay, so when a character is born, they are 0-0-0, and you don't get to know how good they are. When they start aging up, they'll get a trait that affects their career, if you want to call it that. So like they could get, like, this character will get more martial per month, because by default a character, it seems to be like has a 50-50 on rolling a stat increase each month. I'm not really entirely sure how the education works. I could probably ask someone to figure it out. But by default, they get 0.5 in each stat. It's like a 50-50 roll, or they automatically gain 0.5. I don't know. But then you like roll a trait. That trait will put you like 0.33 into one stat, or maybe you'll roll a good one and it's 0.33 into two stats, or a really good one is like 0.25 into all three stats. You can also roll dumb, which if you get a dumb heir, like his stats will just roll shit. So there's no way to really know whether or not a character is going to be like... I mean, obviously you can tell if a character rolls gifted, this is probably going to be a good heir, unless they just roll terribly, right? But there's... You can't just see a kid and you don't... Like, this is a 666 heir, and you're like, yay! Yeah. Timur is absurdly overpowered to the point of insanity. He's probably the most broken character they've ever put into a Paradox game. I know I've mentioned that a lot, but like, holy shit. How are the different religions mechanics-wise? It's more than like EU4 launch, I would say, where it's like each religion just gives you a different set of stat buffs, for sure. Catholicism has different mechanics. Catholicism has a lot of situations and a lot of events going on, but overall I find to be quite not that great, but not exactly bad. The Catholics are really good at getting technology. That's, I would say, their big advantage compared to any of the other religions. I think there are some religions that have like unique advancements. Those are the technologies, like unique advancements that give them tech growth. But by default, the Catholics just generate the most because their clerics are just going to be really, really, really happy because you can't tax them. So any positive effect you give them by like slamming 10 estates onto them, and they default to like equalizing at like 90% happiness, that's going to be a lot of research, because the happier an estate is, the more buffs they give you. And some estate buffs aren't really that big a deal, and some are a big deal. And the priest one is that they give you research speed. And I believe at 100, I think, so at 50% happiness, they give you nothing, right? So generally when you auto tax each estate, you try to keep them at 50% happiness, because that means they're not going to rebel or do anything. So because you cannot tax the clerics, because Catholics can't do that, the Pope is the only one who can do that, but he doesn't, because he's, so you can't tax your priests. They're always going to go up to like 90% happiness, and that's going to be like 22% tech speed. So the Catholics are just really good at getting technology. So far as their actual religion mechanics, unlike EU4, they still have like the Curia, and they've got the buffs from the Curia, but the only people who, and this is going to sound really dumb, and it is kind of silly, basically the only people who get to vote on the Curia to get the buffs are the cardinal nations, the nations with cardinals. And I think there's not enough at game starts. There's like one extra who, if they generate enough religious power, can ask the Pope for a cardinal to become a cardinal nation. And basically what you do is, once you generate enough religious influence, you can call for a vote on a buff. And if everyone votes yes, then every single Catholic nation gets the buff. So then you're probably wondering, why would they not all vote for the buff? They do. They literally all just vote yes. So all the Catholics get together and jerk each other off, and it buffs everyone. And that's their mechanic. They do have other mechanics. They've got the Western Schism. They've got the Reformation. They've got the Hussite Wars. They've got the 30 Years' Wars. So they have a lot of content like that. So far as actual strength, though, it's mostly just that you can't tax the priests, and you've got a lot of... Basically, the thing with Catholicism is it makes every estate happier, but you can't tax the priests. And simply not being able to tax the priest is actually a weirdly big buff, because all the other estates will be happier, which means you can tax them more. So you're not going to make as much nation as other people, but you're going to get a lot of technology. Crusades are in the game. It just creates every Catholic nation invades this nation war. Most of them don't give a shit. I've never seen them win. I've barely even seen them fire. Most of the time someone's like, let's crusade Egypt, and everyone goes, no. And then they try again like at 20 years, let's crusade Egypt. And everyone's like, no. All the cardinal nations are like, yeah, fuck that. The reason Milan is busted for world conquest is they start as a count, despite also being very quickly. Every rank you fight upwards gives you 10% war score cost reduction. So you fight a duke, that's 10%. You fight a king, that's 20%. You fight an empire, that's 30% war score cost reduction. Milan starts as a count. I have, because I like doing this, I have put in a ticket. I do not believe that Milan should start as a count. They should start as a duchy. So that would help that weird issue first off. But the second issue is that upgrading your country rank, basically keeping that war score cost reduction by never upgrading your country rank, is a bit silly. And I think the reason you can world conquest right now is because the AI nations are just not very good at warfare, fundamentally. It's not that it's easy to do world conquest. It's not even that you get stronger by doing world conquests. It's that the AI nations are so bad at warfare, they can't really stop you. And I think they're going to work on it. The big fundamental issues, it kind of plays like Crusader Kings 3 did, where like the AI just doesn't work together and all their stacks get picked off one by one. But yeah. I haven't played Milan in so long, Fanaku. I kind of forgot what their opener even was. I know Milan gets infantry combat, but I don't remember what their other unique advancements are. Hold on. Let me scroll. I take so long to answer questions. I'm like, I've barely answered any. Okay. Does Christopher Columbus get a day after him if he discovers a new world? Well, he didn't. And in fact, actually in game, back in 2021, they found a book, an Italian book, the recounts of a Italian cleric who was writing down history. And in this book from the 1400s, I believe, so well before Columbus, maybe the 1501, something like that, I don't know. In this book, he does actually recount tales from Icelandic fishermen who were talking about the New World, and it irrefutably proves that people did know about the New World and were sailing, not like in mass, but they did know about it and they were sailing to it. And even into Italy, it was written down and they did actually know about it. And you can actually, in-game, it is one of the work of arts, you can actually have that book as a work of art. The only reason I know this, by the way, is because it was in-game and I did play as Florence. I did look it up and I was like, oh shit, that's true. Okay. Is EU5 better than CK3? Sure. What nations do you think are the best to play first? Hungary, Bohemia, not much else. Every nation's got their own. It's not like EU4 where every nation kind of just starts the game and you just go from there. Pretty much every nation in this game has some problem, some situation, something that they need to solve to do, some actionable content. And because of that, there's not really any nations that you can just play as a blank nation. I mean, you can maybe do Kiev, but they don't have any content, so it might get boring. Kiev does have unique advancements. It's kind of cheating right now. I think Kiev definitely kind of cheated into some advancement blocks. It counts as Ruthenian. Ruthenian culture group gets unique advancements, but then it counts as East Slavic, which gets unique advancements, but then they technically count as having Cossacks, which give them unique advancements. And throughout these three different advancement groups being combined, and you do need to research them, they're not just free, you don't just get age 2 and it's like, here's your free buffs, but between the three of these groups, there are generally enough pretty good advancements that it actually ends up being a weirdly strong country. Yes, okay, that issue, Funiku. So, the Medici do spawn, and they do spawn the Bank of Medici in-game. It's like a real tag. It's in the game. The problem they die off is because republics don't give a shit about dynastic mechanics, and you can't even marry off like in a republic you can't even marry off, which is a whole big problem, right? But because of that, the Medici family dies off because it's not marrying. But it does spawn, it is in game, it just needs to be worked on a little bit. You do get events as Florence, by the way, where once the peasants rebel because they can't afford food, the Medicis heroically put down the rebellion and continue to keep oppressing the peasants. And then they are heroically elected to dictator for life. Okay, Catholics sound very strong. People definitely think Islam is stronger, but I very much make the argument that Catholics' pretty large technological advantage. They don't have good advancements. They don't have good mechanics. It's just this weird effect where they get lots of technology by appeasing the church. Are there any fun, difficult challenge run starts at the start like EU4 for wacky plays? More than you could possibly believe. Anything is a wacky challenge run start if you can want it to be. There's so many nations that start with nothing. I mean, you could just play as a Georgian vassal. That's good fucking luck. If I played Lithuania, no. If yes, is there an event change for converting to Catholicism or Orthodoxy? I believe so, yes. And I've seen the Lithuanian AI fail it every time and have the pagans rebel out. But I hope they get a little bit better. I heard you can merge cultures. If you get an empire, you can merge the cultures within your group. Yes, so like you can combine everything into Muscovite and form Super Russian. I don't know how quick it is. I've never gotten that far, but it is there. I can see it. No, they have to be the same culture group. You're merging your culture group together to be like Italian or Russian or German. Yeah. Did it play as Greenland or Iceland? No. They're poor as fuck. Colonization is so expensive. There's no way they're beating anybody. I think that whole shtick... There's a reason why Johan responded and was like, I don't think you guys understand the game mechanics and you're all being really insulting right now. EU5 and CK3 are fairly different games, so expect your answer to depend on how you like to roleplay as a country or dynasty person more. Well... Yeah, they're very different games. Yeah. Switzerland was very OP in EU4, but it's like in EU5. So you see all those like hundreds of different colors of little shit counts? That's Switzerland. Yeah, figure that out. It's not very good. How strong do you think Mali will be given the most gold mines on the map? Problem will be obviously getting institutions early on, but the later institutions spread pretty easy. The first couple are a problem. Now, I'm hoping they do adjust that balance eventually, but getting those first couple of institutions will be a problem. Other than that, they do start with Mansa Musa. They do start with a shitload of gold mines. They start entirely balkanized. This isn't like one giant people. These are all vassals. Mali is this guy right here. So, oh man. So, Mali is this guy right here. I need to get a new mouse. This mouse is like, it's like straining my hand. It's so hard to use. But it's like, it's so smooth, but like it doesn't, it's like too heavy. Something. It's like, can I do something about that? No, it's got weight in the back. But I normally like weight in the back, but this one's just too heavy and it's straining my hand. Like, over long periods of time, it strains me. You can even see, like, I can't draw good circles because of the weight. Yeah. So, it'll be strong, but it's gonna have to sit there in the necks, and that's painful, and the whole thing is painful. You also have to make sure to not let other people spread. You also need to pay for diplomacy to try to keep people loyal, and that's gonna be a huge burden on their income, blah, 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 blah. Okay, is EU5 gonna be some disappointing bullshit that Victoria 3 was? Like, I get it, not everything from EU4 will be in EU5, but like, honest to God, is this going to be another Paradox classic that we need? By far, I think this is the most content of any Paradox game I've seen. Now, obviously there's some issues, like once you start going into 1600s, 1700s, a lot of the gameplay starts breaking down, but you also need to remember that just to play into the 1500s, that's going to be like a 20-hour plus campaign already. Going from the 1300s, 1400s, that's going to be a while. So if you're good at the game, and if you play a large nation, you'll probably start crushing everybody around the 1400s, and maybe, you know, you enjoy the gameplay loop, but the gameplay loop is also very different. Basically, I'm not joking when I say basically every single nation in the game has some sort of, if you're relevant to the early modern period, I should specify, if you're relevant to the early modern period, you probably have some sort of something, an advancement, an event, something, and probably more than you're thinking. That's why I keep stressing that, is because I keep thinking to myself, like, yeah, I want to play this nation, I want to play this nation. Then I always think like, oh, well, they're gonna, they said they're working on naval, they're working on natural harbors, let me play a land nation. I think, well, okay, that one, blah, 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 blah. Just wait for when Protestant spawns and gives you 20% discipline or something. Protestant gets a unique advancement for 10% morale in age 4, and that's about it. I think it's strong, for sure, because suddenly being able to giga tax these clerics is good. But even once you get all these percent stacking modifiers to tech gain, because every institution you accept gives you 5% faster tech, right? But even once I was at that point, I had 200% tech gains, but then losing the 25% for my clerics to tax them. And you can't just, like, you might say, oh, well, then stop taxing your clerics, and then you get the same thing. But it's not like that, because Protestantism doesn't have as many other bonuses. If you stop taxing your clerics, you're going to end off a bit weaker. So you're losing a good percent of tech gain. Do you foresee issues with the giant tags at games start in India and China being the richest areas in every Paradox game? Yes. There's really nothing else to say there. I mean, Paradox just frequently struggles to simulate those areas not being some giga powerful monster. And I don't really see that changing here. Is the AI better than CK3? It really depends on what you mean. In Warfare, I would actually say CK3 has it beat, but they do have, I mean, it's a month before launch, so they're probably fine-tuning some stuff. I would hesitate to say that, like, this AI is bad, because months before launch it's doing bad, right? Okay. So far as building their country, I would say they're going to build their country and have you beat for maybe 50, 60, 70 hours. Maybe 100. Is the Caliph in a similar position, who's similar flavor to the Pope? There's not a Caliph, I don't believe. I mean, there might be one in-game, but I didn't really see any mechanics for him. You might have noticed Islam got a little bit beat up in the recent history. They're not doing so great. Is there any advantage of playing tall later when control is easier to get control over a large area? Not really, no. I mean, fundamentally, early in the game, you can really only go tall and get some vassals, but as time goes on, I mean, we have to remember here, what did this time period end with? It ended with Prussia getting shit canned so unbelievably hard by France that people like to deny that it even happened and give huge excuses for it. Prussia, the gigatall country, got shit on unbelievably hard by France. They were swat aside like a gnat. So, suffice it to say, I don't believe tall ended up winning this time period. Yeah. How does merging culture groups work? Like, can you pick which group? You're just East Slavic. So you're merging that. Slavic is very large. I'm not sure if you're going to be allowed to merge everything into Slavic. That would be a bit screwy. If they do allow you to do that, that would be screwy. Because Slavic is like a huge culture group. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe it's an oversight? I don't know. I never really thought about it until just now. It sounds like the EU5 start is very slow building up. One of your criticisms of Victoria 3 was that it's slow with lots of waiting. What's the difference that makes this one fun for you? Because the Victoria 3 start is queue up 20 billion buildings, go get a drink. That's it? That I just go get a drink? Like, I don't really know what to say. There's just not really anything to do. And in EU5, because you get your money monthly, even though the months take longer, because they are longer, even though the months take longer, there's more to do. You've got cabinet actions that you can be flipping around. You've got estate privileges that you can be looking through, trying to assign. You can be padding your advancements out. You can be slapping down buildings. You can be fighting a war, even though you don't spend a lot of your time in war. You can be managing different things. And although I typically just sit there at 4 speed, I mean, I sit at EU4 at 4 speed, and in this game in particular is the only one I've actually, like, while I'm at peace, I'll pause sometimes because I'm like, okay, hold up. It's a very slow game. If you actually want to get to be as strong as possible, there are some countries that can expand quicker, but the question becomes, do you actually get anything for expanding? Even the countries that can overwhelm people, even the countries that can just mass conquer, you don't really get much from it. And in fact, you can actually get weaker from it because having a bunch of land at zero control just pushes you towards decentralization. And the more decentralized you are, the worse off you are. Centralization is significantly better. Just sitting there as a super high control nation allows you to just push towards centralization. and then could also allow you to take some decentralization push estate privileges or maybe some laws, because there's some really good laws that push you towards decentralized. And if you have a lot of push towards centralized, then you can just say, screw it, I'll take this one because I'm already at the centralized cap. So I just need to push a little bit towards centralized so I could take this buff and yada yada. How much railroading is there? Not really any. There's some events that fire automatically. There's some things that happen automatically. Like the Western Schism is going to happen. You can't really control that. You can just toss Jan Hus down a well. I don't know why you can do that, but you can. That seems to be the most gracious example of being able to avoid history, though. But if you're playing Poland, the nobles are going to kick the shit out of you. There's not much you can do about that. If you're playing Lithuania, you're going to have to either try to convert to Christianity or deal with some problems because you're going to be a pagan nation the whole game, which is not a very strong pagan nation either. So that's not going to benefit you in the long run to try to stay pagan, right? Let me think. If you're playing the Ottomans, like it pushes you to actually be the Ottomans. You don't really get penalized for not doing it, but then, you know, you're not really using all your buffs, are you? Is there Reformed and Anglican? Yes. There's Calvinist, Anglican. Anglican is basically impossible to spawn. Some people have tried to force it, but the requirements for it are silly. Anglicanism is weird. It's like the historical situation that led to it forming is dumb. Why is there a 5-minute delay? There's not a 5-minute delay. Pretty much everyone that was in England got crushed by France in the Napoleonic Wars. Yes, because they were large, wide, well-controlled, well-maintained. Despite having their issues, once they brought it all back, they were a very, very, very large, very populated giga-realm. Yes, like that. The game ended on wide being dominant in a gameplay sense. So when the dominant land powers of Europe were Russia and France, not Prussia, not the Netherlands, not Naples, not Bohemia, not Austria. No. It was Russia and France. So if they want to mimic history, they kind of need to go like, why were these nations just blatantly the most dominant land powers? Well, is there any form of character creator? No, nothing like that. You have to play your history. Does a navy actually have an impact in defensive siege to resupply a city, for example, or is it like EU4 just adding a bonus? Pretty much the bonus. Yeah. In Age 1, it's not going to be very fun to try to siege a castle on the coast with no cannons. I think the most you can get that up to is like a 14% chance to succeed, and it will take you a very, very long time to hit that max bonus because it's very rough. Castles in this game are very rough. You'll be sitting there a while. Okay, I got through every question here. Guys, you have to ask more. Let me think about content. Hello, Dumbfire. How are you doing today? Did you come out of your battlefield hole? So like about oh, right, yeah, Formables. Okay, so Formables do have tiers. You can get advancements when you form them. So far as collecting advancements like Pokemon, I don't think you can do that. I don't even think you can culture swap. Maybe it's a mechanic. I don't know. Can Austria be a stupid merry conquest tag? Nope, they're pretty underpowered right now, actually. They're not doing too great, unfortunately. It's just not. They said they would look at them, and I don't want to talk too much about like balance or anything like that. They do have a shitload of content for Austria, and they did give them a lot of ways to push ahead. The problem is that just the terrain they're on is abysmal, and it just kind of leads to the country not doing terribly well. Switzerland has a small amount of content. Don't hold out for Switzerland. They do have some unique cultural advancements. They do have a unique cultural building. They do have some stuff they can do. I think they have some events, but they're not really... Yeah. You aren't showing gameplay, but you can show interface. No. To everything you just said, absolutely not. Can you form Hanover? Look, I actually looked around for that one, and I couldn't find which nation could form Hanover. Like, I feel like it's gotta be in game. I just couldn't find who does it. I don't know. I might be stupid. Because I thought Hanover would have advancements or something, because they were like the one other German prince than Brandenburg that did stuff in this time period. How long did it take you to feel comfortable with the new mechanics going from EU4 to EU5? About 100 hours. I finally settled down and it like started making sense, but even then, to this day, when I talk to like the other content creators, I still think to myself like, oh shit, they right. They probably know better than me. Okay. Or I'll like look at the laws again and I'll be like, oh shit, I hadn't looked at that from that perspective. Okay, yeah, I could see that. Like there's a lot of, the game is quite complicated. It's a very, there's a reason every single person goes to play this game, and I haven't seen anybody not like the game. Like the Hoi 4 people, the Crusader Kings people, the Victoria people, everybody plays this game and they all seem to very, very much enjoy it. How's it to play the Golden Horde? Pain, misery, destitution, poverty, unsuccess. Is there a specific fun nation you think is ideal for going full colonialism with that isn't super powerful? Portugal. Can Castile just roll over Portugal to form Giga Spain? Yeah, pretty much. Castile is a big monster. They can do whatever they want at game start. No one really stops them. You can't stop Castile. The Castilians are probably happy with this one. Hanover might also be known as Brunswick-Lüneburg. I'd have to look into it more because I was like desperately trying to find nations that you could play in Germany. And that's where I eventually did my Hesse run, because I said, screw it. I'll just play a nation with no content, no events, no unique advancements, nothing. I'll just play with nothing, and I'll see if I can still enjoy the game. And that ended up being my longest game, because I played on the terrain mode, and I was just like managing all my little cities, all my little dudes. And I had Castle be a city, 2 other Germany names were a city. I put cities in Frankfurt. Frankfurt grew pretty hard. Frankfurt took me a while to get. That was a pain. And I put down my own market. So the gameplay loop is fun and enjoyable. But the German states in the middle don't have the most content. It's Austria, Bavaria, Bohemia, Saxony, Brandenburg, Holland. They've all got pretty good content. There's some unique cultural advancements for like certain areas. So like as Hesse, I had like 2 or 3 unique advances from being like a Rhine-Franconian, but I wouldn't hold out hopes for Central Germany. Unless the devs are like really holding back at the last days of release, which I don't think they would be. They kind of want you to play the nations that like actually have content. They didn't want to just do, here's the Germany advancements or anything like that. Which Italian? I keep skipping questions, not because I'm trying to. How many multiplayer slots do you think Africa has, and who are they? Mali is playable. And yeah. The Canaan Empire, these guys right here, they do actually count as an empire. I'm not too sure. I think regardless of what they called themselves, they shouldn't be an empire tag. That one is a bit screwy to me. But the Canaan Empire has some cool stuff. The Ethiopians got like the Kawa infantry. In every age, they have the Kawa infantry with the Kawa barracks that they need to produce their Kawa infantry. Like, they're limited as to how many Kawa infantry they can build based on how many of the barracks they've built. And they're like a pretty strong heavy infantry. Yeah. As for that, I mean, it's 1337 Africa. There's... I mean... Yeah. Let's just say there's not a lot of powers here. When the game is starting to be pop counts instead of development numbers, they can't just like they can't just pump up the pop counts of Africa at this time period ahistorically. Like, what you have is what you have. Are there many formidable countries? Yes. Let me go back up. Okay. God, this mouse just gives my thumb cancer. You know what? The other one had a bug with its scroll wheel, but this one's just too heavy. And because I need to keep pushing with my thumb way too hard, and because I need to keep pushing with my thumb, it's just like really painful. Like over time. How do unique units work in this? Do they become obsolete? So it depends on the unique unit. Oh, like as a base rule, yes. Somebody asked about the Black Army. The Black Army is in age 3. Hungary can upgrade to the Black Army, I believe. But it's only in age 3. After that, it is, yes, obsolete. Other units can upgrade. For example, starting age 2, the Ottomans get the Janissary. They need to build the Janissary barracks for each Janissary corps. They don't just get to have, like... Here's 900 Janissaries, like in EU4, right? You need to build the Janissary barracks.
For Guthuk Fund.
Thank you, Rock Paladin. Oh, that guy donated earlier, and it totally... Who was that? Thank you, Future Pro. Thank you. Thank you if you're still here, my dude. I appreciate that a lot. Sorry, I'm like in a zone here. Thank you, Future Pro. Thank you. I appreciate you a lot, my dude. Please say something in chat so I know you didn't leave angry at me for not saying anything. And thank you, Rock Paladin. I appreciate that a lot too, my dude. Did he say anything, or did he just donate that and then I skipped it over because I... Man, now I'm gonna go crazy. Hey, you could just be a lurker. Dang it, Future Pro. Okay, well, I'm gonna assume that... I mean... Say something. Tell me you're not angry. Now I feel bad. Okay, thank you, Future Pro. I appreciate you. Thank you, Rock Paladin. Yeah, I will actually probably use that money to get a new mouse. This one's actually... I'm kind of like saying it out loud because it actually is like a serious irritation to my thumb. So I just have this slow droning pain in my thumb now. I'm gonna get like arthritis off this shit, I swear to God. I've avoided arthritis all my life. Now I'm gonna get it off this damn mouse. Anyway, so like some units are more unique than others. For example, the Janissary plays directly into how the Ottomans have to play. They don't just get the Janissaries and now every infantry is a Janissary like in EU4, right? You don't do that. You need the Janissary barracks. Only a manned Janissary barracks gives you +1 Janissary slot to even build. Then you need the Janissary barracks manned by slaves. So... everybody from the Balkans, you can finally rest happy. The argument is done. The Janissary barracks can only be manned by slaves, so you must enslave people and put them in the barracks, and then once you do that, that gives you +1 Janissary. So if you want a big Janissary army, the Ottoman Empire has to get militarized, industrialized slavery. It's not, like in EU4, it's kind of shown as being like, hey man, if you respect their rights, they'll rise up as Janissaries for you. In EU5, it's like, yeah, go enslave the Balkans. Yeah. Okay, let me go down again. So I'm like scrolling up and down. Okay. So as for unique units, there are some nations that get them in every age, like Ethiopia gets the Kawa infantry. There's the Janissaries for the Ottomans. Genoa only gets the Genoese crossbowmen in age 2. After that, it upgrades. It actually becomes weaker. Well, I should say it becomes weaker in comparison, so it'll upgrade to just a regular light infantry, whereas in age 2, it's a heavy infantry with the initiative of a light infantry. The Genoese crossbowmen, for its age, if you compare each age and like the strength of unique units compared to other units at them, I think the Janissaries are overall the strongest, but the Genoese crossbowman is outrageously powerful because it's a high initiative unit with no downside. Yeah. Do you ever think they just slapped Mali and nothing else? I haven't played Ethiopia because it didn't look terribly interesting to me. Yeah. And maybe, I mean, if you just put Ethiopia down here, there's something. There's also Yemen, which has some events and advancements as well. Problem with Yemen is they start a pop cap on every territory because their land is all arid desert. I don't believe all of Yemen was arid desert, but it's all arid desert in game. So they start a pop cap on every single territory. Not literally, but like 90% of them. Kind of hope they change that one, because they did Tunis and Morocco so well. When Paradox always screws over the North Africans, this time around they didn't. So it's weird to see them screwing Yemen now. Yeah, I mean, exactly, Phonic. If you're looking at it from a multiplayer perspective, you can just mod in Hanover and give them some modded advancements, stuff like that. Have you ever seen Morocco beat Castile? Not even a little. I've seen Morocco actually scale their economy higher than Castile, but even then, the actual army size was pretty dwarfed. Any chance you making a video on a roundtable discussion on EU5 with other creators? I do think some of the creators are, let's say, at my thought level, and a lot of them are not. I look at the game as a very, very historical game with a very interesting gameplay loop that has so many like neat little, oh man, I can't believe they put that in here, right? Like there's just so many times where I'm like, oh, they thought of that. And a lot of other people seem to look at it. Some people are like hyper fixated on the trade and this and that. And I'm like, trade works well. It works better than any other Paradox game. I don't think we need to make it even more complicated, do we? But yeah, there's also some people who just want to do Giga Conquest. Like me, I mean, again, what I do, I literally just sit zoomed in for the most part on terrain mode, and I just build my little cities. I watch the cities grow on the map. I turn another rural area into a town, into a city. I watch that grow. I do trade. Yeah. Okay, do you typically see the Timurians sticking around for a long time after Timur, or do you eventually see someone else like the Safavids or Persia? Persia will never do anything in this game. They got... Persia does have content, I should say. There's a absolute crap load of unique advancements for the Farsi culture, I believe. Then for forming Persia, there's like another 3 per age or some wacky high number like that. But Persia's a terrible climate. They don't start very united. They kind of start depopulated due to some events that might have happened recently. Any of the Persian events or anything, I do know that Armadil event spawns, but like it event spawns with no hope. Yeah. Looking forward to multiplayer. Do you have any good impressions of the game to say whether multiplayer is going to flourish? The battles are very fast. If you play at 3 speed, the battles are over in like 3 seconds. That's probably the biggest problem. I don't think that's gonna change. And I definitely foresee... I think multiplayer will be very fun from the perspective of... And this is kind of how I play the game. I play it like a very, very min-maxy sort of game where I just sit face down, just trying to like hyper efficientize my nation, trying to squeeze every little bit of money out of there, trying to get my economy to grow as much as I reasonably can. So like in Hesse, I got it to where I had every single pop employed. There were no more peasants. I had an outrageous economy. I had a ridiculously large standing army for my size. And that's kind of how I play it, like as a hyper efficient min-maxer, I guess is one way to put it. And I think in multiplayer that would be very fun. There are a lot of mechanics that could make multiplayer battles interesting. I guess my main concern is just that because the battles are over so quickly, and you can say, well, that's historical, but like, the problem I have is when 10 years of pop growth can be wiped out in 3 seconds of real time, I feel like that's going to have a little bit of an issue. Yeah. Top 5's most unique small nations to play. Urmaz over here, who owns Hormuz, because they've got unique advancements, and they get the Farsi, the Persian advancements, then they form Persia and get more unique advancements. A lot of people actually seem to really enjoy playing as them. A lot of people like playing Oman behind them. For me, I've tried to play Holland so many times. I think it's a little bit rough. I really enjoyed Genoa. Venice has a shitload of stuff they've got going on. Ottomans, if you consider them small, they're pocket-sized Ottomans at game start, right? They could just fit in your pocket. They've got a lot of outrageously strong buffs, but the game mechanics are so anti-Ottoman right now that it's like they've got jets on their ass. All the events and buffs are like boosting them super hard, but then in front of them is a giant boulder, and they're trying to push the boulder up a hill because the game mechanics just hate them, but they get so many buffs and they're stuck between them. Okay, it definitely seems less intricate than Victoria 3, but I think that totally fits to this game. I think the trade is more interesting than Victoria 3. I don't think just being ludicrously well scripted and ludicrously complicated is actually like, I don't think that translates well to just being fun. Yeah. I mean, there's an Eastern Roman Empire, that means there should be a Western Roman Empire formable, right? I believe there is, but it's kind of like an Easter egg. I haven't actually done it or even come close to it myself. I don't really get very large before I move on to the next game, because again, it's going to be 12, maybe 20 hours of playing a nation to get to the late 1400s. And so by that point, I'm typically like, okay, I've seen this nation, I grew a bit, I like this, like, I want to see what this nation does now. So yeah. Very specific question. Can you monopolize furs to Sweden by conquering the north of Russia? And if so, what do monopolies actually give you? Can you actually spike prices, or just a bonus to the owner? Not really. There's enough furs around the map that you're generally fine, but furs are a good RGO. So being able to build a lot of furs is a benefit. Like good RGOs, that's a raw goods. Getting good, powerful RGOs is very good, right? Like you need lots of iron, because as the game goes on, you're gonna need lots of tools, and then you build tools to get more laborers, and then you use that to do more books, which you use to open universities and libraries. But then when you do that, you know, it's kind of, it's very much a feedback loop through everything over and over and over again. You're definitely, oh boy, sorry. There's a bot in my Discord I need to ban. You're definitely trying to create as much demand for goods as you can, so then you can fill that demand, thereby continuing to employ more and more and more people. And you can get new buildings at each age that kind of helps with that loop. I don't remember where I was going with this one. But at any rate, furs aren't really needed by anything. The feedback loop on goods tends to be more on specific, like tools, cloth, fine linen, that sort of stuff to get people clothed. Books are outrageously important. You can actually get enough books built for the universities and the libraries to actually teach people how to not be so dumb. Peasants will never reach that much enlightenment. How fun would a Zoroastrian run be? I'm not sure it's even on the map. Anything, if you guys are thinking like EU4, late EU4, where like there was like all this like ludicrous old history, and you could be like, what if the Teuton horde was actually the Mongol horde? Like, no. There's none of that shit. Don't even imagine it's gonna be in the game. So if that's what you're hoping for, it's just, they're very much, let's say, grounded in pretty historically plausible things. A resurgence of Zoroastrianism at this point is laughable at best. Gonna be Norse? I think it's technically in the game. I just, once again, it's like, you're so far out of historically plausible that even if you could country flip to Norse, you're just gonna get a generic religion, and they might put some like Protestant style, like, click these to get the buff from this god. Like, it's just, if this way, let me put it this way, if you're trying to get, if you're trying to buy the game to do these ridiculous old history things, then it's just not going to be very pleasant. But if you're doing it because you want to play Poland and struggle against the nobility and form the PLC and blah, 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 you're going to have a very good time. Like, that'll be very fun. Okay, do I think I'll play Hess in multiplayer? Absolutely not. My Hess was outrageously powerful, but I'm fighting the AI. If I was fighting another me, if I was fighting another dude who's sitting there, nose in the ground, like min-maxing their pops as hard as I can, trying to squeeze every little bit of efficiency out of stuff, I think I would get blown out if I played something that's small and insignificant. Even though the gold mine, I might do an AAR later about Hess, but like there's a gold mine that Hess can take really quick and build that up really quick and get pretty rich off that. And even then, it's just like, you just don't have the pops, and you're in the lobster dome, where whenever you try to take a state, every other HRE little shitfuck Count Schichterberg is just like, sir, did you have a permit for that? It's gonna be a coalition. Then you have to go beat the crap out of a coalition. Then you gotta do it again, again, and again. Have you seen Trebizond ever form a union with the Eastern Romans? I've not. All I see is Trebizond pick on the Crimea that pops out of the Golden Horde. I see them do that, and then I see them, like, I just see Trebizond and Crimea every time. I don't know why Georgia doesn't do that, but okay. On a scale of 1 to Age of Wonders, how much would you recommend EU5? So I really only make content and stream on games that I'm happy about. I think the only ones I do that I'm not really happy about are games that I tried because I thought I would like it, and I'm like, the hell happened? It's like on Total War, I make videos on Total War when I'm like, okay, I'm really, like, this is dumb, like, what the heck? But like, you might have noticed I didn't do Stellaris content because by the end of 4.0, I was just like, okay, like, what the hell, man? Like, I could make some complaints on Stellaris. I just don't think that leaving like 75% of the content from DLCs and that sort of stuff, I don't think leaving all that stuff in a either very underpowered or broken state is a good situation to be in. I mean, if I wanted to go play, what do you call that? The Mindworm Origin thing. What is that called? If I want to play that, like, it was so hilariously underpowered. Even once they did bug fix it and get it working, it was just like, so like this DLC just, I mean, technically you can play it and technically it does work, but like after these changes, it's just so like worthless. The other day you mentioned that losing professional soldiers in a battle uses direct pops, not just manpower. Can you elaborate on that? Every soldier you lose, Paradox shoots one of your pops. It just shoots them in real life. I don't know a better way to describe it. You lose 500 pops, the game code just deletes 500 of your dudes in one of your provinces. They're just dead now. Bye. So some people thought that raising a professional army and getting manpower would allow you to not actually lose your pops. That is not, in fact, what happens. It's actually one of my big worries about this game. It's very difficult to wage warfare right now without losing like a catastrophic amount of your population. I have I have put this complaint forward to developers, and this is why sometimes I don't see eye to eye with the other content creators, is because I mentioned it and I was like, look, the 7 Years' War made Prussia lose 2% of their population, and this was considered like a supreme catastrophe. This was considered like an absolutely devastating situation for Prussia, losing 2% of their population. You can lose 2% of your population in EU5 very easily and quickly. And that just doesn't seem historical at all to me. And people are like, well, war should be punishing and all that. And I was like, but that's just not war. Like, you could argue war is punishing in other ways, but punishing to the point where you're slaughtering your populace wholesale, committing acts that at a later day are just going to be called, like, well, I'm not sure if I could say the word because then YouTube might put me somewhere, but you get my idea here. And so I was like, this is just like absurdly ahistorical. And it also, like, the big problem I had was like, if you ever played multiplayer and fight an even war, you could lose 10-20% of your population easily. And people were like, well, war should be punishing. And I was like, bro, come on. Like, how do you not see this as a problem? Another content creator told me that nobles are the most important pop because their input goods are so high that they're important for the economy to function. Yeah, basically. Nobles buy a lot of the high-end goods, like books at GameStart, and then once you get enough books, you can slap down libraries, and libraries use more books. So then you can build more books, and you are capped as to how many scriptoriums you can get in your city. Once you get into the Renaissance age, age 3, you can build the paper mills, or whatever they're called, paper factories. They're not called the printing presses, they're called something. I mean, obviously they would use the printing press, but you get the idea, right? And so you slap down scriptoriums, they make good money because the nobles buy it. Okay, so now you make a surplus of books, use that to build libraries. They use books, build more libraries. Okay, you're done with books, you built all the libraries. Move on, let's get tools, so then we can get RGOs because we need masonry to reduce the price of buildings. We get masonry, now buildings are cheaper. Okay, so now we put down tools to make sure that the masonries are working. Now we need lumberjacks because lumberjacks make most, not all, but most of the RGOs easier to produce. So we get lumber mills in our cities, our towns. Okay, we get those. Now we can put down RGOs, get RGOs, lower the price on some of that stuff. At that point, you're gonna need more food because, oh wait, you're a dipshit. You just put all these peasants into jobs. Now they're not getting you food because the cost. Okay, so the game is very much And this is another thing I'm gonna keep saying is another thing I just can't agree with on the other content creators, is that the game is very much about efficiency and running your country very efficiently. And for example, if I just put all these pops into work, they're not running food. And if they're not running food, now I'm buying food. And if I'm buying food, that's not good. In addition, the cost of crown is a tax on your gross income, not your net income. That means your total income. So if I'm losing 10 or I think it's even 20% of my total income to cost a crown, then I'm losing even more income because now I need to buy food to make up for the food demands that I'm no longer filling. What I do see as a common problem is a lot of people keep building these efficient buildings and they're not making more income, net income. They're making more total income, but that total income is going towards filling the cost of the crown, and it's going towards building, I should say, buying more food. So efficient building, no more income. More efficient buildings, my income is the same. It's more, income is the same. 10 years later, my income is the same. 10 years later, my income is the same. And you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? What are you doing wrong? You're not filling your food demands. So you do have to set up these giant food farms. Livestock, grain, these are really good for it. The other ones are obviously not as good. But once you get good livestock, good grain, so those will slightly increase your tax base. Not by too much, but they will slightly increase it, which slightly increases the cost of crown. But most importantly, you stop buying food. So now your income, which has been stuck at 20, is now 30, then it's 40, because that 20 food tax is gone. And now your net income is rising significantly. And it's very much about playing efficiently like that. And I feel like a lot of people don't think people like that sort of efficient little gameplay. And I guess my counter example would be, what? People play Factorio, people play Hearts of Iron 4. Do you know how complicated that game has gotten? And you're telling me that liking an efficient economy that you need to run well, that you need to build up to actually work? Like, you're telling me people aren't going to like that. I just don't believe it. Like, I could just sit there and manage all this shit, and I find this fun. I find this interesting, and yeah. Does Venice have any unique ships or armies? No, but don't quote me on that because I might have missed one. I'm not infallible. Like, I'd say 75 to 80% of what I say is right, but the game is really complicated. I think a lot of people are going to have their minds broken when it comes out. Everything, I'm like, even with all I'm describing, I could just describe a complete economy to you guys, and you'll go into the game and you'll start playing, and you'll get blown the fuck out. And you'll just be like, why? Why is my income not growing? The cost of crown keeps eating all my income. And I'll be like, because you're not efficiently building. Like, I had one problem where I had a really powerful peasantry because I was just making my laborers super rich with an efficient economy. And no, my income kept staying the same. Why is that? Why was it going down? In fact, it's because my stupid shit farming peasants. Now, look, when you rank your different pop types, the nobles are rich and evil. The church is not too rich and not too evil. They play. I don't really mind the church. They're fine. They could just sit there. No one hates them, right? They don't do anything bad. Most of their events are about like, hey man, do you want more technology? And you're like, okay. You can also piss them off real easy. They don't give a shit. Nor do they have any real power. So what are they gonna do, right? The peasantry, they're rich and stupid. They're not evil. They're just stupid. And what do? They fucking love to build shit for other peasants. The problem is the shit they build for peasants uses tools. Well, unfortunately, in one of my runs, I didn't realize, in my Hess run, in fact, that they were building so much shit that ate tools that my economy started to crumble and collapse because tool prices were skyrocketing, buildings were shutting down because they couldn't get any tools, and I looked around and I noticed the stupid shit farming peasants had used all my tools to enrich the other peasants. And that wasn't great. So even once you play this game for hundreds of hours, it can still throw you a curveball where you're just like, what the heck is happening? Okay, do the population actually scale in Russia and France as in history or not really? So there are extraordinarily powerful advancements for Orthodox plus East Slavic. If you're an Orthodox and you're an East Slavic, or if you're in one of the two, right? You have to be in one of the either, but both of them get a pop increase, a population growth increase in age 3. And when you combine the two, you get a pretty decent 0.1% pop growth per year. And that's not an insane amount, but it is a decent amount. So far as Russia itself, they have a lot of territories all growing pops. Hope they had standard of living. There kinda sorta is. The development of a province will increase the amount of goods the people in the province use. You want to be increasing your development as much as possible because development just gives you good buffs. But pops who live on areas with more, like a pop who lives, a laborer, a noble on a high development land, he just wants more books. That's just a gameplay thing. And that's one thing I actually think the game does well. When it comes to try to simulate something, it'll simulate it. And when it comes time, like, this gameplay thing will make the gameplay better, then they just do that. Victoria 3, I find, is often so obsessed with trying to make everything a simulation that they often, A, make the game not really that fun, and then B, have a problem where it actually ends up being abusable because they refuse to use any video gamey things to actually just do it. But yeah, as for Venice, Venice does have a unique building, the Venetian Arsenal. They can build 4 buildings at a time out of a province. That's really strong. The Scaliger Ward, this Della Scali, I've been told that's like a really high priority to get that working properly. Do I need to fix pop consumption of goods? No, I think it works pretty much fine. Can you list all the food RGOs and which ones are best? Livestock, I believe. Livestock and wheat, I think, are by far the best. I think, don't quote me on this, but wheat should pull out ahead because wheat can be given a windmill. Windmill gives you 10% more output. So between basically the windmill building being allowed on wheat should give it the slight advantage and make it outright the best. Fish is pretty bad, but there's lots of provinces with fish, you can get it, but wheat and livestock are blatantly the best. Fruit isn't very good. Legumes are better than fruit. And just to keep this in perspective, for each wheat you produce, you get wheat the trade good. Wheat the trade good doesn't give you food. It's just wheat the trade good. And your pops will eat wheat, but that's not their food. It's a bit weird, but just once you mentally understand that, I promise you the whole game will become a lot easier. So if any are listening to me and on release day, you remember this little thing I just said, it will help your life a lot. But when you produce wheat, you also produce 8 food. So if you produce 1 wheat, you also produce 8 food. The food is what they actually eat. They also eat the wheat, but the wheat isn't food. It's just like a commodity at that point. It's like a car. Think of it as a car, right? Wheat, livestock produce 8 food. Legumes is like 5. Fish are 4. I think wool produces 2. Just through... You don't wool because you want wool. Or you don't get wool because you want food. You get wool because sheep. But then you'll also... They're trying to simulate that, like... Just through the sheep farming, you'll have some food run off from that. It's not going to be a lot, but you're going to have some, right? Way more than if you didn't have sheep farms, right? The peasants are dumb, and all the other groups kind of just hate them. The burghers hate the peasants. The clerics are actually the clerics don't really hate anyone. They just sort of exist and make books for you. Until eventually you fire all the clerics and you give the bookmaking jobs to the burghers because they have the printing press. Then the clerics kind of get completely depowered, but they still run the universities. But nobody likes the peasants. The nobles hate the peasants a lot. Half the noble events are basically just, we want to beat the peasants to death with our bare hands. Will you let us? And you're like, what? No. And they're like, okay, well, this means war. And so you're like, okay, you can beat a couple to death. And they're like, this still means war. And you're like, okay, nobles can now freely beat to death any peasant they see. And they're like, this doesn't make me happy, but at least it doesn't make me angry. And you're like, please don't make me go into civil war. Are there any events or something similar that makes Sweden lose Norway? I didn't play Sweden that much to see it. I played Sweden a little bit, and I colonized with them, and then after a while I was like, okay, this is neat. Getting a little bit boring, but neat. I mean, it's just building up my country, but my country wasn't very rich to begin with, so it was kind of a slow build-up. I got, like, I don't know what you call this whole coast, from Stockholm down to, like, this little dent right here, but I got pretty much this coast full of towns. It was a rich coast, and then I colonized all of this, and then I thought to myself, what am I doing? I'd spent like 5 hours doing this, and then like it just dawned on me, like, bro, what am I doing? I'm making towns in Sweden. The AI will declare war on the player if it thinks it can beat you. It's about as often as EU4. Can it beat you? Yes, it'll do it. Can it not? Well, then it's probably not going to want to do it. Do I see any tags getting banned in multiplayer? So, draw a line here. Anything east of this line gets banned for being incredibly overpowered. Yeah. Anything in India, anything in Asia, just all of them, just horribly overpowered compared to the Europeans. I played any of the New World nations. I've tagged in as the Aztecs. They're a small, tiny little city right here. They got 100,000 pobs at game start. They get the Jaguar warrior unit. They get the Nahuatl religious mechanics. They get stuff like that. It felt like EU4 all over again, and I thought, that's neat. And then I just tagged out to something else because I was like, neat. Okay, not going to do that, but neat. And yeah, Foniku, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of pop growth. The Orthodox and East Slavic stuff. Let me go get water. I'll be right back. To also give you an idea, by the way, the devs have pretty much locked down pop growth. There's almost nothing you can do to increase pop growth other than just having a rich country with cheap food stored handily. As long as you do that, which should be the bare minimum, then you get pretty much maxed out pop growth. There's not much else you can do. So the devs giving Orthodox and East Slavic a pop growth advancement in age 3, that's much more than anyone else gets. Did Japan, Korea have lots of flavor? Shockingly, yes. Korea has a unique cannon. I think in Age 2, they have unique fortifications they can build. They've got some stuff they can do. I don't know if it'll be enough to keep you content, but I mean, you can play Korea. You're not going to get the first wave of institutions anytime reasonable, right? But I don't think you'll be bored playing Korea if you're not used to the gameplay mechanic. You could probably play it out for a little bit and do fine. Japan has a lot of stuff too, lots of situations and things. I think for me, most of them are going to get, both of them are going to run into the same problem of now what? Like, now what? Now what do you do? Now what? Right? Like, okay, so I've united Japan. I guess I'll go conquer Korea. Okay, now what? Like, I guess I'll go conquer China. Like, there's... What does Korea do? Conquer Japan, I guess? What does China do? Well, they're fucking China. Like, they won. They're China, right? I mean, I guess you could build up China and make it a game of how much you could get your tax base to. I mean, some people play Victoria 3 and just see how much they can get their GDP to, so... I don't know. Are the plagues and diseases actually that damaging when it hits your country? The Black Plague, when it rolls out of game start. So, you have to remember, Age 1 isn't that long. You hit Age 2 in, like, a decade or something. And... you gotta... like, most of your early game is going to be spent, A, jumpstarting your economy to get things going, right? But then B, it's going to be about trying to mitigate the Black Death as much as possible. Because unmitigated Black Death takes 40 to 50% of your pops. Lightly mitigated Black Death is more like 40 to 30% of your pops. Probably more like 40%. If you work really hard... and you have an urbanized nation, and you please your burgers, and you lock down all your cities, and you spend a shitload on hospitals, you can get it down to like a 20-25% pop loss. So it's very much, in my opinion, the early game is going to be about trying to mitigate disasters. After that, I found them annoying, but not exactly game-breaking. They'll like wipe out 20-30% of a city, but like one city. Which feels bad to just see like, oh, 40%, like not 40%, but like 40,000 people died. But then it's like, okay, I mean, kind of a dent in my population. I have 3 million. You know, like, you know, chip the paint a little bit. The native Indians have any content at all? I don't know. Probably not that much. They gave them a little bit just to kind of be like, go at it. But again, I'm really trying to emphasize and double down. Like, from me to you, heart to heart, please actually try the nations that were relevant to the early modern period. The developers have put so much content into it in trying to make it cool, relevant, to play the actual intended nations. And all of y'all are going to like sprint off to try to play like one of these little pueblo and be like, ah, I'll play this, and you won't have fun. You won't see all the cool events. You won't see all the cool content. You're gonna get annoyed, and you're probably not gonna like the game. Play Serbia, play Ottomans, play Poland, play Milan, Genoa, Venice, Florence, all of them. Super cool. Lots of shit you can do. You'll learn shit. When you take Pavia as Milan, you get a historical event to move your capital to Pavia. Why did Milan move their capital to Pavia? I don't know, but I learned they did it, and I was like, neat. Why did they do this? This was stupid. Good job, Milanese dukes, I guess. You can play Austria. You'll learn that Austria actually had its capital on Graz in between, I believe, about 1430 and 1650. Did you know that? Did you know it wasn't actually on Vienne? Did you know it was only moved back to Vienne in like 1653? I didn't. But I wikied it and I was like, oh shit. I didn't know this. You can play Poland. You can get your historical events for dealing with your nobility. It's mostly just the nobility kicking your dick and then demanding the rights to be able to kick it twice. And if you don't give them the rights to do it, they'll kick it 3 times just to make you. France is very complicated. I haven't the heart to try to play that thing yet. Don't play Brandenburg. Holy crap, don't play Brandenburg. Unless the devs rework that thing, I don't think you're gonna have any fun. It's miserable. I very much think the devs made it a bit too rough. I think they wanted to make it a challenge nation because they knew everybody was gonna play it, so they wanted the game to last a long time and be a big challenge. Maybe too much challenge. Maybe a bit too much. Are there mission trees? No, there's no mission trees. You get events. The events tell you to do shit. Google your nation and look at what they did historically, and you'll probably get events and you'll probably get shit telling you what to do and rewarding you for playing historically. You play Hungary, you put a town on PEX. Oh, hey, look, you're gonna get an event for a university on PEX because that's actually what happened. Hungary is really strong. Really, really, really strong. I have a question. What do you do with a population of 10 million and you can have the largest military in EU5 and 2, let's say I play Muscovy and colonize the Americas and release them, will it still be USA and Canada? I have no idea. Your military is limited to your manpower. There's no force limit or anything like that. Your manpower is limited to how many manpower buildings you build in your nation. Generally, that's going to be limited to your population. If you build big cities, the way it works in EU4 is your manpower is just based on the military development. And then you put down a barracks and it increases it by 50%. Okay? But Burgundy is literally no content. They don't consider it relevant to the early modern period. It was like a blip on history. But in EU5, depending on how many people are in an area, depends on how many armories you can put in a city. So you don't put down, for example, 1 barracks and now you get 50% more manpower. You put down 1 armory, which gives you 10. And then if you have a lot of pops, you can put down 2 and 3 and 4. Yeah. I heard you take more war exhaustion from losing battles and your army is bigger than your recommended amount for a country your size. This is true. That seems to be what was happening to me, because on Hesse, I had the nation basically maxed out. I had every single armory, every single training field. I literally had the biggest armory I could possibly afford. Not even afford, literally have. I could not get any more manpower. I could not squeeze any more juice out of the nation of my size. I was 1.6 million, and I had a standing army of 35,000. And when we lost battles, my war exhaustion went up really high. Well, I shouldn't say lost. Even when we won battles, my war exhaustion went up. I did hear they're gonna rework it a little bit because I don't think I should build up so much war exhaustion that my like when you hit max war exhaustion, your nation surrenders. It's kind of like Stellaris in that perspective, but war exhaustion can go up and down, and it is tied to like actually doing stuff. But apparently, my nation didn't like 10% of them dying off. And they surrendered. Maybe a bit quicker than I would have liked. How viable is pagan Lithuania? I haven't tried Lithuania. But again, I'm trying to assure you guys, the game will be hard enough for you at game start. And trying to do wacky ahistorical stuff. Don't think of this like EU4, where the game is so easy and so stupid that you can just do the most stupid ahistorical shit and get away with it. Like, once you're really good at the game, sure, fine, go for it. I wouldn't recommend you even think of doing it. Like, stick to the guardrails, because you will end up inting your run and not really having as much fun. What nation has the best mercenaries? Military quality in this game is significantly toned down compared to EU4. If you guys remember EU4 at launch, like, there wasn't that much military quality, and those that were in the game were not these outrageous numbers. Like, Sweden having 20% infantry combat, 5 discipline made it like top tier. Whereas by the end of EU4, not having like 10 discipline and 20 infantry combat, 20 morale, 10 billion manpower, like not having all that shit made you underpowered. In this game, once again, Sweden having 20 infantry, 5 discipline makes them top tier. So there's no such thing as a mercenary discipline modifier or anything like that. You have mercenary premium cost, which lowers the cost it needs to hire the mercenaries at first. Merc maintenance cost. Other than that, they just use your generic modifiers. What nation has the best mercenaries? I think Genoa, or maybe I think Venice. I think Venice can lower their premiums, but military quality, I'm gonna say it's not really. Like, there's obviously some nations with kind of out of control military quality, like Teutons. Teutons are like fucking absurd. I don't know why. Like, their military quality is just like triple everybody else's. It's a bit stupid. It's like come on, guys. I know they were a holy order, but they lost. How does the late game feel in terms of scaling? If you're building properly and conquering properly, does income just scale to ridiculous numbers? Pretty much, but it takes a while to get to that point. They keep adding anti-scaling mechanics, but there's still some things you can do to bypass it. In particular, some of the expenses that they want you to pay, you just end up not paying. Like, you can pay to have like cultural investment, and you invest in your culture, and it pays artists and shit, right? And that takes a % of your gross income. You just not pay that. That's it. There's no downside. You just don't pay the artists. It's not even really that good to pay them. And there's like a major faucet that's supposed to like tune down your out of control scaling, just gone. I think that there's obviously a lot of balancing to be done in that regard, but you also need to remember that it's going to take you a while. A, to learn the game to get this point, and then B, like, it's gonna be like 10 hours in the game. Like, these games are long, okay? I don't know how long you guys intend to play out a game, but it takes you a while to get to this point. Remember that Mamluk Egypt is one of the strongest nations at game start. They were, they still are. They got significantly toned down. They're still one of the strongest nations. There are some things holding them down that I think the devs will actually remove. They'll still be weaker than they were when I first said they were one of the strongest. I think they're just like out of control. And they don't have enough pushback from some of their historical weaknesses that would stop them from kind of just crushing everyone. Yeah. Bohemia outskills anyone in the HRE and no one else even comes close. Yeah. They said they were going to rework Austria at least a little bit to try to get them to be stronger, but fundamentally, if we're just looking at the base game, if we're just looking at what each nation starts with, population-wise, resource-wise, Bohemia just starts so far ahead of everybody, it's crazy. Being able to chuck Jan Hus down a well for 50 stability is probably a bit too easy and removes the historical event that actually kept Bohemia from just getting insane and outscaling everybody. Does EU5 have tooltips that offer useful information to the player quickly? Yes, a lot. Infinite. So many you'll not know where to find them. And that kind of starts running into the problem. If you know where to find the tooltips, you can easily find basically any information you're looking for. But finding where the tooltip is sometimes can be difficult. So there's a lot of information in this UI. There's tabs within tabs. And you can find any information you're looking for, but sometimes you just have to know where to go looking. So you can find your pop growth from storing food, but you need to know what to hover, and then you need to know what to hover while hovering that. So it's going to take you a while to learn everything, but the information's there. You can get it. You just ask around, I guess. It's going to be a complicated game, is what I'm trying to say. How does slaves work? Their class. You can also make slaves centers that turn slaves into a trade good. Don't ask me how this works, but I'm almost entirely confident that there's going to end up being a pop printing exploit. Don't ask me how, I just know it's going to happen. I think they've got it locked down pretty well. I think they do, but you never know. Just make the Crusades Hussite Wars far more devastating. In game right now, you literally toss Jan Hus down the wall for 50 stability. It's painful, but it's not gonna really stop a country as strong as Bohemia. And so they just chuck him down a well, avoid the whole thing, and then they're good to go. How good is AI? They're pretty decent at building their countries, but they're absolutely miserable at waging war. And I hope they improve that. I can't say for sure, but I'm hoping they just have some archaic AI on right now. If it launches like this, it won't be the end of the world, but you'll see lots of people doing world conquest because the AI can't really put up a legitimate threat well enough, let's say. I think, yeah, basically you can beat people with 4 times more numbers than you because they're just really bad at grouping up, and then you just beat them all one at a time. And then once you do that, you win your war, repeat, repeat. More coalition fires, win it. More coalition fires, win it. War more in. So that's how people are doing this world conquest Europe type deal, right? If they actually grouped up, they would very much be capable of putting down a player. But they just don't group up, and they just don't group up enough. Other streamers have said triangle trade is in the game and needed to make the most of the new world. Well, yeah, because you're in the new world. You've got these plantations. You need to move your actual population over to get them. Now what do? You're going to need people on those plantations. Is Congo a decent nation since you can achieve control through the river? I've not even clicked on them. I've not even clicked on them. And we played Mew in Taxes. Nope. Well, I did a little bit. I found it a bit laggy, but I played it like 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's been a while. But yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, Cog. If you get your plantation set up, you're gonna need people, and then, so the way I understand it works is that you import slaves as a trade good, then once you use a slave trade good, it deploys population by deleting it from the original location and creating it on the location that bought it, the trade good. I believe that's how it works, which does seem foolproof, and it does seem like there's no way around that. Use one trade good, move 1,000 people. 2 problems. 1, pops are so in demand, and pops are so, like, it's really hard to get enough pops, right? So there's no real actual reason for them to sell them other than to just fuel the player and the European AI's economy, right? 2, it's really complicated, and boy, I sure don't really understand it. I don't know. It's really complicated. Do you see games continuing past the big goal people have? Say I start as Naples and my goal is to unify Italy. Is the game still fun after that, or am I basically satisfied? At that point, if you unify Italy, and if they actually do make the AI challenging, and they actually do make it hold you back, you've probably been playing for 30, 40 hours in that run at that point, and you probably want something new to do. That would be my guesstimation. Does Hungary have any government reforms? I played them for a bit, and there's 2 they have, but aren't actually on the country by default. It feels like they should be on the country by default, but they're not good. I don't think they're very good. And you don't really want them. Muscovy starts weak, depopulated shit, but it starts with a city. The only other city in the region is Novgorod. If you are playing Muscovy, you'll outscale Novgorod. The events in the game also kind of put their thumb on the scale and make you outscale Novgorod. Problem is the AI is a little bit too afraid of coalitions because there's so many small shitty tags around you. The best I can tell is a Muscovite AI is terrified of like bumfuck land uniting with shit land, combining with Farmville, combining with green forest territory. And even though they'd only have like 2,000 troops between them, the Muscovite AI is just like, whoa, better not take too many states out of that war. Might get coalitioned. It could be something else, but I just don't. Even when Muscovy gets stronger than all their other neighbors, which is going to take a while, but even once they do, I just don't really see them honestly getting, like, at least for AI Muscovy, I never see them get anywhere. They're taking like one state every decade. And not state, province. They're taking like one province every decade, which, sure, by the end of 400 years, they might form Russia. One of the factors you would say in this game that make a country interesting or worth playing: unique starting position, events, challenges, stuff like that. Would anyone even coalition Muscovy given their unique religion and culture? Yeah, of course. Okay. Ryazan could combine with their shit vassal. There's 2 right there. Smolensk and their 3 vassals, and all the way, that's 5 coalition members right there. As I said, bumfuck land, shitville, farmland are all gonna combine, and they're all gonna chuck their 7 levies at you. And so the Muscovite AI is like, whoa! Haven't heard you complain about forts. Are they a huge issue for you or overblown by other creators? I figured out how to annihilate forts pretty quickly. I also figured out that if you beat the fuck out of an AI and just put your foot on their throat, they'll generally just give you land. And they'll give you land even if you haven't sieged the fort, as long as it's not their capital. So I figured out pretty good strategies for assaulting forts tactically. Either at the beginning of the war where the garrison was dead, or after I killed enough of the garrison by getting enough good siege ticks and just not wanting to wait around, that most of my wars are won through a, I'm going to call it a blitz action, followed by taking 2, maybe 3 forts on the month of the opening war, then sitting on them, beating the shit out of the AI, trying to liberate them until eventually it gave up because it was getting its shit torn apart. So at least for me, I figured out a pretty good way to get through it. Other people don't seem to have developed any strategy for dealing with forts other than just, like, they just seem to sit on them. I don't know, they didn't do anything creative about the problem. I looked at the problem and I was like, okay, well, here's what I can do. Because, like, you can end up getting, like, 60, 70, 80 war score out of 40 war score if the AI is, like, beat to hell enough. And if you keep stack wiping their levies and sitting on their land and war exhausting them, the AI pretty much wants out of that war ASAP. So if you just don't do a full annex, or you do a full annex, what I also like doing is you can, for example, if you declared like 4 enemies, you can just like quick assault some of the forts of their allies, full occupy annex, full occupy annex, full occupy annex, and now you declared war on 4 AI, and you can just, boom, well, now that's 4 people I've eaten. The penalty for non-co-belligerent in this game, I actually looked it up in the defines. In EU4, you get 100% increased aggressive expansion. In this game, it's a mere 30% more. Have I seen any other Turkic Beylik beat the Ottomans? I see this guy on the right actually do pretty well. Not because he conquers or does anything. He literally just sits there and builds up. That's it. That's his grand strategy. And by just sitting on this territory right here and building up, he actually gets his tax base high enough that he has actually surpassed the Ottomans before. Which should hopefully give you some examples of how starts that have 2 cities, or at the very least 1 city, a decent starting population, can just sit there and build up for a bit and dramatically increase their wealth by just not engaging in pointless, frivolous warfare that doesn't really give them any benefits. Doing that can reward you immensely, and that's actually, ironically, what I've seen happen. Now, hopefully, they change some game mechanics to allow the Ottomans to succeed, because again, they've got like jets on their ass. They've got like rocket engines, like all these events are buffing them, but they're trying to push a giant fuck off boulder up a hill because the base game mechanics just do not like them. And they can buff them as much as they want. There's just not a lot they can do to try to get that AI to work. How will you draw the Slavs away from the Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era Early Access? Easily, KB. I didn't get in. So, I can't do shit. All I could do is watch other people play the game. Oh, there's a demo available now. Oh shit, it came out. Today? Why the fuck am I here? Damn it. Well, shoot. I'll do that later. I wonder if they'll give Ottomans a total war mechanic like Timur. So that would be bad and not really work in their favor. It's already ridiculously easy for the Ottomans to conquer their neighbors. Almost none of them have forts. There's no such thing as a capital fort anymore. People don't just get a fort because it's their capital. That don't work. Right? And so the Ottomans, what are they called? The Germanians? And I saw them all game. I don't remember. The Germanians. Why can't I remember that? Germanians. The Germanians, they don't have a fort anywhere. I think they got like one, maybe. And it's pretty easy to open. Day one, declare war, quick assault the fort. They are nerfing my assault fort strategy, by the way, but they are putting a fort limit on a country where if you pass the fort limit, you pay increased maintenance. You can basically surpass the limit of any country, by the way. You can go over your culture capacity. You can go over your fort capacity. You can pretty much do anything you want. It's just going over the limit often comes with penalties. So if you go over the fort limit, your forts will cost more maintenance. And I did ask Scragger, because I knew you'd be the kind of motherfucker to ask this question. No, increasing the maintenance of forts does not increase the goods consumption. It just throws your money into thin air. That was the first thing I asked, because I thought, well, could I just make a lot of forts and then make a shitload of goods requirements so then I could fill them and get rich off it? No, you can't do that. But even if the Ottomans could conquer all the Germanians, even if they could, it wouldn't really matter. The land isn't cored. It's not controlled. It's all Greek. It's all Orthodox. Like it barely even benefits them. They could go east, conquer, west, conquer, south, conquer. The problem is the game mechanics just do not agree with how the Ottomans are meant to be played. In fact, there's no way to even play the Ottomans in a way that the game likes. Accepting Greek culture puts you so far above your culture capacity. Your cabinet basically works at half efficiency, but most of the Ottoman buffs are getting extra cabinet members. So I guess you're supposed to culture convert the Greeks, but there's a lot of them, and there's a lot more of you than there are Turks. And this isn't EU4 culture conversion where you can like delete the entirety of the Greek race and turn them Turkish in like 10 years. This is EU5 culture conversion. We're talking like 200 years, maybe. Takes a while. How often the Romans fought the Ottomans? But 0% of the time. Not because the Ottomans can't beat them, but because the Ottomans never really get anywhere and they never do anything. Most of the time they'll use their unique events and stuff and conquer left, right. I've seen them own like Western Anatolia and then they're too poor and destitute to do anything and then they just sit there the rest of the game. And Serbia is poor and shit. Bulgaria is less poor but still shit. The Romans are literally being chucked down like 17 sequential wells by the events. The events in the game are like, you start in debt. They're like, okay. They're like, here's a disaster. They're like, okay. They're like, there's 4 more coming. They're like, okay. They're like, you're gonna have 4 different disasters firing and random chance will choose which one fires. And they're like, okay. And you're like, it's time for your disaster crab shoot again. And they're like, that's fine. And they're like, now Thessaly is revolting. And they're like, okay. They're like, Macedonia is revolting. You're like, okay. Your fort nade, what is that? The Straits of, what do you call those straits? Your fort got broken by an earthquake. They're like, sure. Like, the Byzantium is revolting. It's a general. You're in another civil war. They're like, cool. They're like, here's a 3rd civil war. You're like, awesome. So, despite all that, the Byzantines kind of just sit there and don't get killed. because everyone around them is somehow even shittier. I do believe there's a sound toll for Constantinople. There's a sound toll in Denmark. I don't know of a sound toll in Hormuz. I haven't heard of that one. Maybe? Because there are two, and I didn't know about the Constantinople one. There might be one here. I don't know. I don't know. It's better to convert the religion or culture of a province. Because accepting a culture uses your capacity as I think there's a base amount, and then how much of that culture makes up your country. It does allow you to accept a bunch of extremely small cultures very easily. You cannot core a province, and this is, by the way, if you're wondering what makes the Ottomans so shit, you cannot core anything that you don't have an accepted culture on, and you cannot core anything that is not your religion. Now try to play the Ottomans. Good fucking luck. They can give them 9 Gorbillion buffs. They're not getting over that mechanic. How is Serbia poor? Kosovo had literal gold and silver mines in that area. Then when start built up, you start not very rich. My internet just blip? Man, my internet has been doing that so much lately. Oh, okay. We're back to our map. Our historical 1337 map. You can build your silver mines. You get like 5 silver mines, I believe. But to get access to them, you have to build roads, which are expensive. They're typically through hills, mountains, wooded hills, wooded mountains. It's not great. So it's very expensive just to get control to them. Then even once you do, your control is still gonna suck. Because again, you're going through like wooded hills and wooded mountains. Once you do get them all built up, you can make a pretty decent income, and now you're inflating. And that's not great. Then you have a unique 3, in fact, maybe 4. I think it's 3. You got 3 unique estate privileges. I could tell you the names on them. In fact, I asked my Serbian friend about them the other day. Let me scroll up. They have names. If you're Serbian, you can tell me if this makes sense to you, by the way. Oh boy, how much did I... Okay. Okay, hold on here. Okay, here they are. Okay, wait. I'm not like showing you game, but I'm just showing their names. How often does another Orthodox country create their own patriarch? Basically never. There's almost no benefit to doing it, because once you create one, you have to assign all their laws, and that takes a while. Being in control of your own patriarch is definitely a buff, because you get double the buffs if you're the leader of it, but it's generally just better to stay in the Constantinople one. Okay, it's called, is that in Serbian? It's called Vishtel Krajishnik. Anyway, it's a Serbian unique estate, that estate privilege they get. You get -5 max control in return for 15% fort defense. Great for defending forts, not great for making money. It's one of the harshest nerfs you can possibly get in the game. Vleshtel Krajishnik. I think I'm doing that. The other one is Zupa districts, which I was told Zupa means district, so they're just saying district. But nobody in Serbian, no one's telling them it's wrong. Did my internet just blip again? Are you kidding me? How arcadey versus simulation is this game? Much higher than EU4. I'd say it's like 75-25. Okay, my internet just blipped again. That's annoying. That's getting pretty old. How about Southeast Asia? I loaded up as Majapahit and played a little bit. And I loaded up as Khmer and played a little bit. Majapahit already starts the game outrageously rich. And it's not really much to do because you're the strongest in the region and outrageously rich. So you just conquer all of Indonesia and then you're like, yay! I mean, cool, I guess, but I don't know, not really for me. Khmer is also really strong and you just sort of swat all your neighbors aside. It's fun to build a country, but if I'm going to build a country, I'd rather a country that I feel like is at least somewhere where eventually I could do something with it. You know? Because, like, let's say I build up Austria, eventually we can beat Bohemia, beat Hungary, right? If I build up Hesse, I have to beat my neighbors, beat the German counts trying to clip at my feet and beat me. But if I'm like Khmer or Majapahit, you know, they got some unique mechanics. They got some stuff they can do for sure. I'm not saying they have no content at all. They do have content. They have events. Majapahit gets an event to conquer Indonesia. Khmer gets a unique government reform. I think they get the same government reform. They get different stuff. I think Majapahit gets a formable, maybe? Don't quote me on that one, though, now that I'm thinking about it. So, like, they have stuff to do. It's not terrible. It's just, like, I don't know. For me, from my perspective, all Asian nations suffer from the now what problem. In Europe, there's generally, like, there's always a bigger dog, but not so much over here. Byzantines are really not very good at game start. I'm sure a lot of you are going to try to hard force them, never learn the game, and just play the Byzantines over and over again until you're absolutely miserable and don't really enjoy it. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend learning how to play the game. But, yeah. You do you, I suppose. They do have some content. the Byzantines. All of it is negative. All their content is negative. It's all, get screwed. And you're like, darn. Then 20 seconds later, it's like, I'm back. Get screwed. I mean, I'm not joking. When I played the Byzantine, there were actually 4 different disasters lined up waiting to fire. I guess you could say it's rewarding. It's not EU4 Byzantines. Well, nah. No one really kills you. I guess. The Ottomans are too weak. Bulgaria and Serbia often want to be BFFs. So no one really kills you when you play the Byzantine. So that does kind of make it easy. Because you kind of just get to sit there and exist for a bit, right? Then eventually, give it 50, 60, 100 years, you're going to eventually bulldoze your way through all the disasters and get out the other end. And no one really can stop you from doing that. So, yeah. Australia seems open for colonization. Have you tried it? I guess my only thoughts are... Is Australia a rich, profitable land of natural resources? Or people to conquer? Or, you know, finish my thoughts on this one, chat. Chad, every time you hear this song, you're going to be so happy. It's got gold. Well, that's good. You can get gold, I guess. By default, the game rules disallow any non-European from colonizing because colonizing isn't an idea group or anything like that. You just get it. And because all you do is get it, technically anyone can colonize. So there's kind of like, historically what happened is China blew themselves up. They launched a nuke in their own borders for no reason. To this day, scientists wonder why. Why did China do that to themselves? So they didn't end up colonizing. Japan was obsessed like a motherfucker with conquering Korea, so they didn't colonize. India was too busy under their 9th invasion from the northwest to colonize. Is it actually 9, by the way? Could actually be more. So, let's see. Mali supposedly tried to colonize. They never heard back from them. So that leaves the Europeans by process of elimination. So that's kind of hard to show in game. So the game rules just have them disable non-Europeans from colonizing, or else you just end up with kind of very ahistorical outcomes. And I think you guys might disagree with me, but you'd be wrong. But I definitely think, in my opinion, that historical outcomes should be as preserved as possible. What's wrong with the music? It's epic. Nothing's wrong with it. I actually like the song. Did you think I was being sarcastic? I meant, what did I say? I said you'll love this song every time it comes on. What example of ahistorical outcomes? My biggest complaints right now, and I have logged them. I have made a note of them. I do believe the devs are aware, so this might not even go live. I'm just going to preface everything I'm saying with that. France loses 100 Years' War so abysmally, you just see Mega Power England every single game. England doesn't take the throne and then France breaks 3. England just slowly conquers all the land. Very slowly, over hundreds of years. France seems to have been completely neutered because they were overperforming by a little bit in the last update. As of right now, they're just dead. Castile basically gets to conquer everything hundreds of years too early. Castile is like just kind of strong. Castile often just murders Portugal for no reason. But again, it seems the best thing I can figure in the game mechanics, I think Castile is afraid of Portugal coalitioning them for eating Portugal. And they only seem to eat them one state at a time, but they keep declaring war, full occupying them, and taking one state. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that is, but I've seen that happen multiple times now. I've also seen Castile just kill Morocco. Nothing around Castile gets to stay alive. Interesting, but wouldn't you ever say that England winning the 100 Years' War couldn't have happened? But it shouldn't. In a regular-ass game, it shouldn't happen. Removing one of the most powerful and major players in Europe is like, you're starting the game, and before you even get past the building your nation part, before you even built up your country, one of the most powerful players of the early modern period is already taken out. You can say, oh, it's fun, it's ahistorical. No, it's really not. It's one of those things where, like, after you've played for 7,000 hours, you're like, oh man, I'd like it if things are a little bit more historical. But like, when you're starting the game, how many times do you want to see France just taken out? Do you want to see it be a 50-50? Of course not. You don't want to see France. Do you want to see it like 70-30? Even that would be too much. 1 out of every 3 games France is taken out. 70-10? No, I don't think even that should work. I think realistically, France under AI control should basically always win. It should be an outright anomaly. It should be an anomaly if France loses. If a smaller country wants independence from a PU, does it then establish a new international order made of the countries that support independence, or it can become independent in some other way? So you have to remember that personal unions in this game personal unions for the most part aren't actually how you think of them from EU4. They are international organizations, and that might seem a bit complicated, but it basically means, let's think federations from Stellaris. They're basically like a federation that starts very decentralized. And over the course of 50 years, so they're trying to make personal unions a bit more engaged. So you still have the 50-year timer, but you're like slowly locking it down. You establish a seniority partner. So that means whoever, one country will always lead the union. Then you establish everybody getting the same succession laws, so no one can be inherited out of the union. Then you establish financing. Then you establish, blah, 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 blah. So over the course of 50 years, you slowly lock them down until you can annex them. What you can do if you want independence, you can create an independence international organization. Personally, never seen one fired, don't really know how they work. I've seen them form, never seen them fired. Never joined one myself. I got PU'd a few times. I just ignored it, and then my inheritance law was different, so I just got out of the PU. I just chose really hard to not believe I was personal unioned, and then we just broke out. They're not, like, if the senior partner wants to maintain it, they can actually work for doing it. But the AI will generally not be able to push it on you. 70-30. So you want 1/3 of your games to be played without France. Right from the get-go. Right before you even build up your country. before age 2 is even over. You want to see 1/3 of your games not have a France. And then Germany just sits in the West. Provence is now, for some reason, a major player in the region. That doesn't exactly strike me as the kind of gameplay I'd really actually like. Again, it's one of those things that you, like, after you played for 9,000 hours, you'll be like, I want more ahistorical stuff, sure. But there isn't a historical option you can go with, in fact. Every decision in the game has a historical option if it's a dynamic historical event, and the AI will, by default, always choose a historical option. Right? You can turn that off. You can have Peasant Republic Florence if you want. But there's just some things that, in my opinion, are too important. France existing is just too important. France doesn't exist, it gets taken over by England. Great, so what happens with the Western Schism? Pope just moves back to Rome, I guess? You can say, well, the Western Schism will still happen. Why? Why would it still happen? We've broken that point in history. The Italian War situation happens? Wait, why is that happening? The 30 Years' War kickoff? Without France, why would the 30 Years' War even happen? Without France helping and funding the Protestants, why would the Emperor not have just marched north and murdered them all? Like, all these events now are going to be firing, all these situations are going to be firing, where, like, they don't make sense anymore. Because basically, it's like you got a house of dominoes, right? You got, like, Jenga made of dominoes, and you're just going to kick it over right at the start of the game. I'd probably restart my game. If it was 7 out of 3, I should say 7 out of 10, 7-3, I would probably just restart my game at that point. Because it's just too important. And it's just, like, it's a really big deal for a super major country to just get wiped out day one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Victor. Like, we've got constants that, at least going into this time period, that reasonably need to stay true, or else a time period doesn't really make sense. At that point, my immersion is broken, and I start thinking of the game as being far sillier. And I know you're gonna say that, like, oh, but it's cool, but it's not. It's like, I'm still in the time period, like, you know what I mean? Like, why even have the historical time period if we're just gonna not have France? I mean, not have Hungary, not have Russia, not have anyone. The point is, these countries need to be here for at least a reasonable time. I mean, maybe we can have France die or be pushed back later. The very concept of France not being in the early modern period is ridiculous. Like, this was a giga major. I don't think people really understand how much more powerful France was than anyone else. Castile dies, gets replaced with Aragon. Big change, but it doesn't fundamentally alter everything. France? How much of Europe's population was France by the 1700s? Does anyone know that number off the top of their head? Fanaku probably knows that one. Tell that to Edward III. He lost! They all lost. 20%. 20% of Europe's population was in France by the 1700s. I think some of you guys lack some historical literacy when you see me saying how important France is, and you're going, but it was just one country. It was not one country. If you guys think France only fought the rest of Europe in the Napoleonic Wars, the War of Spanish Succession was another time where France basically fought Europe to a standstill. There's, like, France is, like, a shadow across the early modern period. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because after World War II, there was such this like anti-French sentiment that we've kind of rewritten a lot of historical shit just to exclude France because people were pissy. But you look back at the early modern period, you look back at this shit, France was a shadow over Europe. The 30 Years' War couldn't have happened without France funding all the Protestants in order to weaken the emperor. Why was he trying to weaken the emperor? Because Austria and Spain were united. And with Spain, you can look at it on a map here, right? When you got Austria, who owns French Comte. He owned French Comte at that time, right? French Comte. He owns the lowlands. He owns Spain. France was encircled. So what did France do? They used their outrageous French wealth and they indirectly funded the Protestants, despite being a Catholic nation, which gave them the wherewithal to actually resist the emperor marching north and trying to defeat them. Oh, Italy. Yeah, there was a French encirclement at that time period. The Napoleonic Wars define most histories who actually think of it. I think people forget just how fundamentally earth-shattering the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars were, both in outright advancing European military technology to the point where the rest of the world still is going to need like 100 years to catch up. But also you need to remember that when Louis was beheaded, people legitimately thought God was going to come down from heaven and squash them. Because kings were put on this earth as dictated by the Bible to rule over us. Wait, no they aren't. But why do we know that? Because of the French. Why do you think all the other kings declared war on France? It might be overstated, KV, but all the other kings in Europe shit their pants. The entire fundamental order of society broke down. And then it continued to broke down. The metric system, I mean, even if you look at America, and I'm not even talking about France helping us during the Revolutionary War, you look at Ben Franklin, massive Francophile. So much of our shit is based on the French. If England won over France, wouldn't their core lands be France anyway? Didn't the English kings value France more than England? Well, of course they did. Well, actually, okay, so here's something that a lot of you guys don't really understand. The England at game start is not... So, okay. How am I barely American? What the fuck? England in most of these games, like at EU4, definitely, oh my god, they have the problem where they depict 1800s England as being 1400s England, and that's simply not true. 1400s England was not at the cusp of the industrialization, right to reach their power. They were shit farmers who got blasted by the plague. And in-game, England is depicted like that. They've got one city, everything else is a strewn-out town. It's mostly rural. They're not rich. They got a decent amount of populace. But the idea at this time period that the English could retreat to England and build it into some global superpower, that just wasn't a reasonable idea back then. So yes, 100%, they would have preferred their French lands. In fact, I believe they would have preferred their lands in Aquitaine to England. So the French merely threatening Aquitaine was bigger than a threat to England. So if you do, by the way, if you do like playing a zero to hero story, all three of the superpowers, well, I mean, there's four of them, there's France, but let's say the three up and comers, all three of them, England, Ottomans, Russia, all of the giga scaling superpowers. France scales a decent amount, but the giga scaling, and I mean like the ones that are absolutely redonkulously strong late game, that's Russia, the Ottomans, and England. All three of them start weak and small at game start. England's not very small, but it starts small in the sense that there's not much built up there. If you actually like playing that sort of gameplay, zero to hero, and you like playing the nations that were actually strong, I think all three of them will be fun for you. England in particular starts so far behind Castile, so much weaker, that it's not just going to be a guaranteed thing that England just beats Castile. Castile has that like 5-1 at game start. So you'll have to work for that. And I think a lot of people will enjoy that kind of gameplay. Prussia LARPers. Brandenburg is so shit at game start, KB. So impossibly shit. I think if a turd rolled into Brandenburg, it would rather continue rolling out. I don't think that fun is even gonna, I don't think that country's even gonna be fun. I legitimately think they tuned it a bit rough on the zero to hero. It's a bit rough. And Russia outscales Prussia really hard, by the way. Russia is like, if Russia gets all its advancements and gets rolling around age 4, they've nerfed them like 5 times now. I mean, maybe not that much, but it's been a lot. Russia still, I mean, they're so powerful. They get so much proximity cost reduction, such good trade goods, so much food, so much stuff that, I mean, their army's not even bad. By the way, that's actually something I really enjoy about the game. Any country that got memed to death because, like, they did the one thing. So everybody's like, look, they did the one thing. Haha, look at them. Poland is the winged hussars. Russia is the quantity, guys. Look, Russia, they're World War II Russia again. Haha. Tunis, the pirate. Morocco, the pirate. Like, any country that got memed like that is actually significantly more fleshed out. Poland isn't winged hussars. They're not really even army quality at all. Poland is about being destroyed by the nobility. And then when age 2 rolls around, you get a bunch of advancements that allow you to build your country up. And you've got really good RGOs. And you can build that country up and make it enormously wealthy. But you start, like, Poland starts at 0. Compare, like, if you look at, like, Poland, Bohemia, Hungary, Austria as, like, the 4 Central Europeans. It's like Bohemia, gap, Hungary, massive gap, Austria, small gap, Poland. So, Poland can scale. They're just, it's a bit rough. Because they got good control going down the river from Krakow. It's just, you get an event to move your capital to Warsaw. And I think that might be helpful late game. But boy, do not click that event if you're not prepared for it. Because having all your control go downstream and getting this amazing control over Poland, and then suddenly it's gone, that's not terribly helpful. In age 3, I think it starts being a little bit more helpful. Not in age 1 or 2. It can't really fire until age 2. But I should say it can't fire at all. You could technically get it to fire if you got lucky and broke some systems and declared war on your vassal. Hungary is pretty strong. Hungary starts for some reason, the Hungarian had banned the export of gold. I don't know why, but they do start with gold exports banned. The King of Hungary decides by event, and apparently historically, he decides to unban the sale of gold. So right at game start, building up gold and silver doesn't really do that much because you have enough of it. But once you unban the sale of gold and silver, you can run up and you can start building that shit nonstop. And that makes you quite rich. So your economy kind of booms off that pretty quickly. Is this a historically accurate map? As much as they could get it to. As far as I can tell, they've worked a lot on this. Like a lot. Is there a giant lake in Africa? That's the Canaan Empire, okay? Do you think England can compete with Port and Castile to be the first colonizer? Probably not, no. England has to participate in the 100 Years' War, and Portugal is... You ever have a nephew? Chad, you guys are old enough, right? You ever have a nephew who shows you his favorite toy, and it's like a train, and he tells you all about it, and he's like, I like trains. That's Portugal. Except it's just colonizing. All they like is colonizing. That's all they want. It's kind of hard to... it's kind of hard to beat Portugal to colonizing because they're like singular-minded on colonizing. That is all they want. That is all they believe in. Their entire country is geared into being a colonial machine. They want to take Portuguese and they want to get them over Africa so they can sink the Mamluk Navy, then sink the Indian Navy funded by the Mamluks, then sink the Mamluk Navy again, then sink another Indian Navy, then sink the Mamluk Navy, then sink the Indian Navy, and cause the Mamluks to enter economical complete disaster because, shockingly, and you probably didn't think about this, it's pretty expensive to get wood to Egypt. They have one mission, one purpose, one drive, one motivation. They're probably not going to get to India, though, but they do get to the New World pretty quickly. It's rough. I think you could beat them if you geared for it, but it's rough. There's also age bonuses. Each age has bonuses. You can choose Mill, Diplo, or Admin, and that's kind of like your idea groups from EU4, but not really meant to be like that. And each age has, well, Diplo, Mill, and Admin. Diplo in age 2, because you already start in age 1. In age 2, Diplo's not actually about colonizing, but in age 2, you have to make a pretty rough call. In age 2, you need to make the very harsh decision, chat. Do you go with the very, very powerful colonial buffs from the age 2 Diplo, or if you go with age 3 Diplo is very big for colonization, but age 3 Mill gives you very large ship buffs. Now I'm going to assume that that was done to simulate the late colonizers being able to steal the colonies from the early colonizers. So the Dutch and the English being able to beat them up with superior navies. But if you do choose the Diplo advances, it boosts your colonization gameplay really, really, really hard. In addition to that, the New World Institution, when it does spawn in age 3, will really only spawn... I could look at the files themselves, but I believe it's only going to spawn on people that like have a colony or something like that. And it's going to be Portugal. It's going to be Portugal. It's going to be Spain. So you could probably get something going by that time for sure, but it's expensive. Colonization gets cheaper over time, but again, Portugal likes to colonize. They really, really, really just want to put Portuguese onto the New World. There's also cool events when the New World gets discovered. You get like a global event. It's like, we got it, guys. There's a new world. I don't know. I like the events. I like the situations and that. It's cool. I think it's gonna go so underlooked. They put so much time and attention into like having so many events, having so much historical shit happening, and I feel like a lot of people aren't gonna appreciate it. How does overseas control work? So basically, it doesn't. I'm gonna be real. There's no way you're controlling shit over an ocean. If you stacked every buff in the game, if you did everything humanly goddamn possible, you might be able to get England something on Newfoundland. That's about it. And even that, I seriously doubt. Would it be a potentially good idea to not join England in the 100 Years' War and leave the continent? My thoughts on the matter is that without stealing French money, you're going to be so far behind Castile. I think your ideal is to use... So, at game start is England. You start with a lot of cathedrals, no money, and a giant horde of raving English lunatics. And the best way to get money out of that situation is to get those raving Englishmen into the French land so they can beat up the French and take their money. And then you can use that to build up England. That's at least my thoughts. Even if you want to leave, I think you just stay in it to beat up the French for money. There's not much the French can do to beat you early game. But ideally you could. I just personally think that you, the player, could probably outscale Castile for sure, because your land is better and you're just smarter. But I've only seen England outscale Castile if they manage to control some North French land, take money out of France, and use that to build up for a bit. Majapahit. Those are these people right here on Java. How is the content for HE miners? Poor. Hesse is none. Bavaria has... If we call tier 1 giga countries, the countries with like outrageous content, that's gonna be like France, England, Muscovy, Ottomans. Spain as a whole, because there's so much cultural content. There's a lot of cultural content for Iberia. I think the country being based there had an influence. Tier 2 countries are gonna be countries with like a shitload of content, but just not like, oh my god, right? That's gonna be like Austria, Venice, maybe all of China combined, all of Japan combined. Poland is at like the verge of this, I would say. Almost there, not quite. Genoa is probably at the lower end of tier 2. Tier 3 is gonna be, they have a good chunk of content, some good unique stuff, good, like you can play through a game of this country and still have some good stuff. It's like Milan, Florence, Pope, Naples. Pope's probably more of a tier 2 though. Really depends on if you consider him to be his own entity or just the Pope. You know, do you want to play him for the country, or do you want to play him because he's the Pope and you get to click the funny buttons during the big situations? I mean, if you play the Pope and you don't want to go to war with the Hussites, well, I mean, you're kind of missing a lot there, right? So, like, tier 3 nations, Bavaria's in there. Bavaria's got some stuff, some content. Saxony is in there. Holland and the Dutch are more like a low tier 2. It's really hard to tell sometimes. And you can even tell in their AAR that they went through. It's like you need like I could tell what was happening in that AAR. It's because you need to spend a lot of time, and I could tell the devs just didn't have time to play the Dutch for like 30 years to get enough screenshots. So everything they showed on Holland, by the way, if you're worried, that was like for the first 30 years of the game. I'm not even joking. That was it. They didn't go into anything past that. Even the hooks and the cods disaster they got by firing an event. Like, you need to play these countries for... Like, this is a long game, okay? I want to really emphasize that. When you... Like, that's why a lot of people just don't play countries till the 1500s. Because, again, you play a country for, like, 12 hours, 8 hours, you're like, okay, that was fun. You know, you want to go play another one. You want to go see what another one's doing, right? And it's a long game. Would Muscovy not get really messed up by coring? Don't you need both culture and religion to fully core? You just accept a culture. Accepting a culture is not a big deal in this game. Muscovite is actually pretty much all of this from what I remember anyway. So you can core all of this, and it's all Orthodox anyway. Then you just accept Novgorod or whatever it is, and then boom, then you accept Smolensk and boom. Then I think there's another culture down here, boom. And then you have all of this cored. And then you've got a good, strong heartland. Is it longer than a Total War campaign? Like 10... Okay, not that. It's like 5 times longer, my dude. That's very disheartening. Playing in the E-Train, forming something like Westphalia, Hanover, and Rhineland is peak EU4 for me. There's some content there, but you have to remember that you're really... You guys are very much coming at this from like an EU4 perspective, where like playing something like Poland, you'll be bored of the game in 50 years because you play Poland, PU like 5 countries in 5 microseconds, win your war with the Teutons, full annex them. Like that's just not how this game goes at all. How easy is it to blob compared to EU4? So the main restriction to blobbing is that you can't get much stronger by blobbing, and in fact will actually make yourself a little bit weaker. And the problem, again, I've mentioned this a lot, the problem in game is that the AI is just not capable of putting up a united front well enough. Think Crusader King 3 Crusades before they reworked them a lot, and even now, a lot of times, they just split up too much, they fight in too many small armies, and you pick them off one by one. If you, the player, actually got focused by these coalitions, you can't really get that much stronger by blobbing. But you can get strong enough to be able to beat these stupid coalitions who are just going to feed you levies over and over again. So at that point, yeah, blobbing's not too hard once you get to like a good standing army amount. I tried multiplayer. I have not. Is Teutonic Order fun to play? No. I believe Johan said they're gonna rework them. They have some problems. They're simply not rich enough to do what they want the country to do, and so when you play the Teutons, you're just playing Debt Simulator. The Polish and the Lithuanians, I think in this time period, 1337, the entire Teutonic Order was about equal to the Polish and Lithuanians in game. It's like Lithuania has you in a full Nelson, and Poland is just beating the shit out of you. Yeah. It's pretty one-sided. And just to be clear, it's not like Poland and Lithuania are outrageously strong at game start. They're strong, but not that strong. Have you experimented much with battles? In EU4, is meta to have lots of stacks to reinforce battles. Is it similar here or just one big death stack? So they're trying to kind of do historical shenanigans wherein most people death stacked historically. It was really until Napoleon when he would actually split up. For the most part, you will just death stack. There's very little reason not to. Guys, again, this is the Kingdom Empire. This is Kingdom Empire. Later in the game, you can start making multiple armies, particularly to siege, but it's going to take you a while to get there. You don't want to split up your army. You have to remember, every single person that dies in real life. There's no way to cheese it. There's no way to exploit it. There's no way to avoid it. It doesn't use Victoria 2 fake math. Every single dude that dies in real life. So you, like in EU4, you would often be like, "Oh shoot, I lost that battle." And you'd be like, "Okay, I'll just bring another stack up there to siege," right? In this game, losing 5,000 people is a very big, frustrating deal. So even if you're playing Austria, you don't really want to split your army in two unless you know that they cannot possibly beat you, because if they do beat you, or even if they fight you and don't get crushed, there's a bit of a problem right now, I would say, in warfare. I've mentioned this earlier, but there's a bit of a problem. The casualties are just way too high. Casualties are like 50% in a battle. It's outrageous. And because of that, you wouldn't want, even if the casualties were lower, you wouldn't want to split up. Like, the population growth in this game is not using like fake paradox math. A lot of paradox games allow you to get ridiculous pop growth to the point where you way surpass history. This game doesn't really do that. It's a bit high, but it's not nearly like as Hesse. That was 1.6 million pops. I think my pop growth was like 400 or 500 a month. So if you imagine I'm getting 5,000 people a year and my army is 35,000. Do you get the problem? If I actually chucked my army into a battle that I wasn't sure was going to be a blowout, years of Hessian birth rate would be down the drain. So fundamentally, the problem is warfare in this time period was simply not enough of an impact on population. It just wasn't. When we're talking about countries with millions of pops that over the course of a war would maybe lose 10, 20,000 people, that's just not a big deal. Like, it sucks for those 20,000 people, but it's just not that big a deal in the grand scheme. They're trying to make warfare really impact your population so you don't just suicide and rat in. But from a historical perspective, it's just not, yeah. Shattered Retreat is just like it is in EU4, but levies don't reinforce. You can lower and re-raise them, but that takes a while to do. And you're kind of at risk when they're doing it. When you're raising, I mean, you're kind of at risk of an enemy just sort of like waiting next to your raising thing. There's no rally or anything. Like, they raise where they raise, right? So like, as Austria, every time I raised my levies, all my Western possession dudes just got wiped out. There goes Gen X in the Potsdam battle. Yeah, I mean, basically. So every time I took a war with Hesse, I tried to use overwhelming strength to wipe everybody out as quickly as I could. Because again, I do not want, like, you do not want to be sitting there fighting protracted battles. It's not like EU4 where you're like, I'm going to attack their manpower. No, you don't want to do that. You'll use your manpower. You don't want to fucking do that. It's really bad. Generational trauma will be occurred if you try to fight wars like that. How much harder is this game to learn than Total War. A good bit. A good bit harder. I would very much... This game's a good bit harder. How effective is arming rebels in other countries? Do other countries do it in you if they don't like you, or if you're accruing a lot of AE? There is an actual mechanic for it. I haven't used it. I've looked at it. I have seen it in front of me. That's about all I can say. So you generally want to show a force war where you fight for a while to see who's stronger, then have a peace after a few battles. No, you want to declare the war, ram your army on their fort, assault it, ram your army into another fort, assault it before they build up the garrison, and then use overwhelming force to stack wipe smaller stacks until they lose the will to fight, and then you peace out for as much land as you can grab real quick. Now, Viable is playing in one location country. Okay, let me describe for you. A one location country in this game would be like saying, I want to play as Lubeck. Just that. Huh. Let me zoom out. Lubeck's territory on the map. I'm just spitballing right here. Is not much bigger than my cursor. Yeah. You can go ahead, chat, if you want to play it. Again, I'm highly recommending, all you guys are like used to EU4 brain. And you're thinking, I gotta start the smallest, shittiest, least relevant nation because in 7 years I'll have quadrupled my size and I'll already be getting a coalition and fighting half of Europe. No, chat, no. You gotta, like, it's a mentality shift here. You have to, like, I started Hesse, and through expanding my economy and all that, like, again, I eventually owned about this. Now, you can deck wars and you can win, right? But if it actually comes down to building up your economy and building up your territory and actually growing in strength, and by the way, for you guys who don't really know, I'm talking like this. About on the map, this is about what I was. Decent sized, but Lubeck is not the leader of the Hanseatic League at all. League is a free city. Lubeck is a free city. The Hanseatic League is a building-based country that is off map. They are not, in fact, playing as a leader of the Hanseatic League. You are playing as a city-state of Lubeck. I was gonna learn Victoria 3, but you make this sound like it's better. Oh, I like it. It's a lot better. You can quote me on that. Even if the game launched right now with every problem I'm talking about, I promise you right now, my heart to yours, you would play 200 hours before you would really start having that many issues with the game. And it's still a month before launch, and a lot of the issues I have been talking about are, they're like, the devs are well aware of them. They're getting adjusted like in real time. Like, they're actually working pretty hard on this. You can play the Hansa, but Lubeck is not the Hansa. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah. And to be clear with any of you guys, just to be clear, again, like I'm trying to emphasize this because some of you guys like don't believe me because Paradox games have launched in bad states before. Like, am I playing right now? No, I can't play right now. I promise you right now, chat. Like, I promise you right now. Okay. What did CK3 at launch have? You can make your own religion. You could form countries. Yeah. Okay. If I go in and play Genoa, Genoa has a unique age 1 galley. You can say, okay, that's only a unit type. Does that really change anything? It kind of does, being able to shit on everyone's galley, but okay, fine, it's only a unit type. Okay, age 2, I get the Genoese crossbow. And once again, you'll say, that's only a unit type. Well, I mean, it does. I also heard that experimental riflemen are 11 initiative. Isn't that crazy broken? No, it's pretty much one of the strongest units in the game. But what was the rifle they used? I assume Scragger's here. Scragger, being a Brit, would jump at any opportunity to brag about Britain's advancements. But yes, Britain, or at the very least England, but I think Britain too, if you form it as Scotland, gets the experimental rifleman advancement in age 6. That's not early in the game by any stretch of imagination. And the initiative of a light cav is 7. Initiative of a light infantry is 6. The experimental rifleman is an age 6 Britain unique unit with 11 initiative. That's how quickly it deploys into a battle and fills out the front line. Does anyone know the rifle they used? It's mentioned in the tooltip. Anyone? Did I participate in the Italian Wars? I tried to play Italy for long enough to do it, but I was playing Genoa, and my Genoese crossbowmen were shitting on the AI so hard. I conquered all of Milan in one war just to see if I could. I did, and then I just beat the entire coalition of like everyone outside of like France and Hungary. And I was like, okay. And I ended up getting bored of the game. Genoa is very strong. Until they fix up the AI, I don't think it's going to be a match for Genoa. Genoa is on crack. I watched some economic trading guides and I still can't wrap my head around it. So if I'm in England or a country in Europe and I want to import spices from India, do I need to own land in India to import? Markets have a terrible UI right now. But I think it's a Ferguson rifle. The way markets work is there's a... Do they have the market map mode? Ah, okay. So the way markets work is you have a market range. That's how far one market can trade to. And then you have the markets. Technically, with infinite range, London can import from combat. Realistically, that's not going to really do it. You're going to need to set up, not Arquebus, that's 1400s. That wouldn't, we're talking experimental riflemen. Arquebus is not a rifle. Rifle. England can deploy rifles in this time period. For anybody who knows guns, that's a big deal. That's why the experimental rifleman is so broken. So you would have to probably jump markets, and then you could reach India. You import market to market to market, and you could manually do it. The UI is a bit shit, so I haven't really worked with that. I have not really worked with this that much because the UI for it just isn't really enjoyable for me. Not needle rifles. So you wouldn't need a market in India, but you would need a market that could reach India. So you would at very least need probably something down here until you get to later ages to get more trade range. Maybe not a musket, a rifle. Do you guys know what a rifle is? Anyway, you get my point. So if you're in the early game and you're Portugal, you're probably going to want to port here so that you could set up a market. You can make your own market, by the way. You set up a market in Brazil, takes out of Brazil, ship to here, ship back to Lisboa. That would probably work. Do you know if 3D portrait changes over the centuries? Yes, but it seems yes. Speaking of markets, it's more lucrative to go for Asian goods, spices, or for cotton and sugar. So, okay, the longer... You guys gotta think... You gotta use your Victoria 3 brain on this one for a second. The longer you import goods, the farther the distance, the more trade power you need for it. Trade power is generated from pops working in one of the trade buildings. There's different trade buildings, and later on you'll get more trade power per pop. But even if you had infinite trade range, the amount of trade power you would need to import from India all the way to Britain might make it theoretically financially viable, as in you actually make money off it, but it might not be viable from the perspective that you're putting so many pops to generate this trade power that it wouldn't really work. Now, of course, in EU4, it was kind of hard to multiply your trade income. In EU5, as compared to combat had all the multiplying modifiers like morale damage, fire damage, fire pip, fire this, fire dick, right? Like, oh my god, you could get so many modifiers from mill. In this game, particularly once we start looking at the unique advances of countries, there's a lot of modifiers for trade. For example, trade range, trade capacity, which trade capacity will just generate more trade capacity per pop because it's multiplying your total trade capacity. Trade used over water, trade upkeep. If you have more trade capacity and reduce trade upkeep, then that's just going to do more, right? Yeah, in Age 6, Britain gets 2 unique units, the Redcoat and the Experimental Rifleman. The general idea here is the Redcoat is used to be your actual heavy infantry line troop. They take reduced morale damage. They're okay. Is it the Ferguson rifle? Baker, I think it was a Baker in-game. In the tooltip, it says which rifle they're using. The tooltips are nice. You can learn a lot. But there's lots of multipliers for trade. The farther into the game you get, the more advantageous and the more cost-effective it can be to pull trade from farther and farther away. The Experimental Rifleman is not meant to be, like... It's like late game shit. The Redcoat is meant to be an okay unit, because you do have to remember, the Experimental Rifleman gets outrageous initiative, so he deploys to the battle super quick, but once the battle is started, he's got fast deployment, but he doesn't do anything after deployment special. He's just got regular ass stats, right? Now, the mere fact that he has heavy infantry stats while being a light infantry and being a nearly double... No, Yeah, nearly double speed light infantry is insane. But at the end of the day, once the deployment phase is over and you're in the battle itself, the redcoat takes reduced morale damage and will outperform him by a little bit. I'm going to have to imagine, if I did look at it in game, that the upkeep of the experimental rifleman would also be insane. Some of these units you guys have looked at, like the Genoese crossbowmen, Genoese crossbowmen upkeep is insane. They're very expensive. Problem is, Genoa is a rich bitch, and they can afford them. And all, like, Age 2, like, let's say we're playing multiplayer, right? Age 2 Genoa is going to be terrifying. The Genoese crossbowman is a light infantry with the stats of a heavy infantry. At an age when most military, like, Genoa has no military quality modifiers at all. But Age 2, Genoa gets the institutions faster than anybody. They also start the game rich as fuck. I should say, on average, they get them better, faster. The Genoa trade node's just kind of in the perfect area to just suck up those institutions. But if we're talking straight multiplayer, like countries played optimally, Genoa can practically get a standing army set up and built. If I had to look at all the different countries, I would say Genoa is uniquely positioned with their income, with their cities, to get a very large, powerful standing army faster than most other countries. Like, you would get overwhelmed if you tried to fight a giga country like Hungary, for sure, but through some, let's say, abusive tactics, perhaps, aka retreat spamming, because retreat has no retreat phase right now, which I'm hoping they do implement eventually. But if you do use retreat tactics, aka you just keep retreating once their deployment matches your deployment, they attack, you retreat, they attack, you retreat. If you keep doing that, you can actually whittle away at armies. Like, I've literally done it myself just to check. You can beat armies twice your size with like a couple hundred casualties. It's probably a bit abusive and should be changed, but yeah. I mean, honest to God, on a timing-based play, due to how ridiculous the Genoese crossbowman is, I think I'd have to give it to Genoa over Hungary. I don't think an army of levies could actually chase down and corner the Genoese crossbowmen to any reasonable magnitude. You would have to get your own units. If you had maybe your own standing army, but oh wait, Genoa gets a standing army before you because they're in the Genoa node. So they just win. Uh-oh. Plus, again, the Genoese crossbowman is really good. Really, really fucking good. Honestly, if you compare my standing armies compared to the countries I've played, Poland, Hesse, Austria, what other countries have I played to a standing army? And I mean like an actual big one. I think it's just those ones. Like, Genoa out, like, I don't know what it is about that stupid crossbowman, but like, holy shit, dude, you, like, they're just like an unbeatable train. It's ridiculous. It's enough to give Total War players PTSD. With how localized antagonism can get, if you just keep pushing down central Italy with Genoa, so long as you deal with the coalitions for taking North Italy, you might actually be able to do... Well, it wouldn't be before the 1400s. I think I had Milan conquered, and I think I was beating coalitions by about 1415. But let's say you were rushing, let's say you were playing a bit better. I mean, you could maybe get Italy unified by 1450. Because at a certain point, just due to how abusive the Genoese... Because other initiative units are supposed to do reduced damage and take bonus morale damage. That's why they're not just auto wins, because They don't just deploy to the battle early and crush you with overwhelming damage, but the Genoese crossbowmen and the experimental riflemen from Britain in Age 6, that's what they do. And you basically just can't lose to levies. In theory, in multiplayer, Venice and Genoa team up and trade and colonize. Could they outpace or compete with some historic colonizers? So the only problem with that is Morocco. So Morocco in this game is not depicted as an 1800s Berber run down crap station. This is 1300s Morocco. For once, again, I like this about the game. Again, they have not done the mistake of depicting a country in the 1300s as if it was the 1800s. They definitely ran into that problem in EU4 over and over again. Morocco at game start has a lot of cities, a lot of rich cities. About half their country, I think, is still tribes, so they need to get them out of being tribes. But once they do that, they have a good amount of cities, good infrastructure built up, and they can get really fabulously wealthy. So long as... How would Berber be a slur? That's a group of people. I mean, try turning on the settings so that more countries will colonize. How well do they do it? How does the world look like? No. But at any rate, the problem Venice and Genoa would have is Morocco kind of does the same thing Genoa does in just having a fabulously wealthy start, but they do it better. That's also why Castile kind of needs to knock out Morocco early, because Morocco's starting situation, like imagine it in your head. Fez is a city, to your south you have another city, downriver you've got a third city, along the coast you've got a fourth city, I think. Those three cities right in front are really within control. You can build on all three of them. You've got pretty decent RGOs as well. You've got good starting wealth. You've got lots of tribesmen to come down into pops. So you can just sit there and build for a while. You start a war with Tlekmen. I don't know that's how you pronounce it. So you just vassalize them. Don't conquer, unless you're a fool. But just vassalize them, and then just go and build. Just play tall for a bit as Morocco, and you just end up ridiculously wealthy. Does Morocco try expanding into Mali as they did historically, or they're focused elsewhere? Well, there's no mission trees. There's no focus. Sometimes you get events for CBs and stuff like that to kind of like nudge, like, hey man, maybe go do your historical thing. But not every country is like that. A lot of times it's just, here's the country, here's some cool events, here's what they were trying to do. Morocco does get an event to break alliance with Tunis and try to conquer all of North Africa. They do get an event to attack Castile and reform Al-Andalus. Wouldn't recommend it, but you could try it. Other than that, I didn't play them long enough. Eventually on my Morocco run, I got Castilled, where Castile just paradrops 50,000 Castilians on your border, and there's not much Morocco can do to prevent that one. Tunis gets no events that I know of, so it's just Morocco. But Morocco, you can try to do the Al-Andalus thing. Turkmen can't beat Morocco at game start. The Morocco AI is really stupid and tries to conquer them a lot, which is worthless. It's just worthless. Just vassalize them. You have no control over there. Like, your control is primarily going to be in your capital, up to the coast, and then a little bit on the coast. There's all mountains over here, so you're not really going to get much control. Even to the, like, this part of your country is not going to do anything, right? You can eventually dig, I call it digging it out, like you're a dwarf. I played a lot of Austria. You dig roads through the mountains. It's very long. It's very expensive. It's very long and expensive, but you can do it. The mountain penalty is very rough and will often not really agree with you. That's why Austria is like ridiculously not even close to as good as they were historically as well, because Austria, basically you've got this little northern tip here and that's about it. Vienne to Linz, you own that works, that's good. Anything south of that is fucked. So like you only really get 20% of your country. The rest of it is just fucked. And the far south isn't even cored for some reason. I'm not really sure what's up with that one. But again, they said they would look into it. Austria, I mean. I think they agree. The developers do want things to play out historically by default. Like most of the time. Most of the situations right now seem to be... You have to remember, they've been making lots of changes to try to like improve the game and make things better, but in a game that's as complicated as this one, you're inevitably gonna run into situations, of course, where fortunately for the people that like ahistorical, but unfortunately for the people who like stuff historically, a lot of times countries get pushed to the wayside because like some change happened and they're not very good. So like they kind of nerfed naval control. I mean, they didn't kind of, they really nerfed naval control, right? And after nerfing naval control and readjusting how a lot of it works, Denmark can only really control Skalen right now and not Jutland. And unfortunately, that makes Denmark really weak. Like, they're supposed to start the game weak, but they're not supposed to be weak all game. And right now, they're pretty much weak all game. That really wasn't supposed to happen. So that's, you know, there's some stuff like on builds to builds, the devs are like, oh shoot, you know, like you gotta, it's really hard for a game this complicated for every country. And I think that's why they're gonna try to lock things down and start patching it. Because when they go, this system could be improved, we could do this better. And then like one country's over there and their unique situation gets screwed over. Yeah. How long have I been streaming for? 3 hours? Okay. I think I'm gonna leave it there, chat. A, I want to go watch Peacekeeper. B, there is the demo of Heroes of Might and Magic that I want to play later. I'm probably gonna do that later. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I'll try to do more in-depth coverage later, but I did kind of want to stream for you guys so you guys could, well, because I haven't streamed in like a month. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. As always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.